Hey guys, and welcome to the Path to Exile Podcast, Episode 2, partnered with Mobalytics. I am Kyle Torek, and again, joining me every week is Miso Shiro and Dead Rabbit. And yeah, we're decided to do it weekly for now. We might regret this long term, but we're just really excited about this game. We really wanted to talk about this, and yeah, we just couldn't do the 2 weeks. We just wanted to get episode 2 out. So here we are. It hasn't been too long since our last episode, but before we dive into the meat of the podcast, what have you guys been up to? Miso, I saw you I wasn't watching this morning. When I woke up, I watched the VOD and I saw you played, it's called Held Clock, the new ARPG that came out. Did that end up being any good?
Yeah, no, Held Clock is so good. I ended up playing that a ton before it even came out here. Before it came out, it was in the demo version, and I played that game for hours. And right now for the release, I think I'm like 15 hours in or so, and I'm still having a really good time. It's like for anybody who doesn't know, it is a ARPG. So they call themselves an Exile-like, but it's a roguelite version of Exile. Like, so think about like Hades, right, with the roguelike elements, but then you also have Path of Exile, kind of like gameplay-esque, but also some of the item customization. You're out there looking for items, farming for items, trying to min-max your build. All the items like change how your character works and stuff like that, and they can really synergize with one another. So yeah, it really is like an Exile-like, but a roguelite, which is really fun.
Cool. I'm interested to see if you're still playing in a week or two. I've seen a couple creators checking it out. It just seems like a interesting time for the game to drop. There's not much doing right now, so
yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be maybe like another day or two is my guess. I don't think it's like a super like long-term game like a Path of Exile or something like that, but I've been watching mods. He's been in endgame, he's been playing some of that and farming stuff at the endgame. I haven't gotten endgame yet. I'm still at the last act, so we'll see what ends up happening. We'll see how long I can enjoy it for, but so far it's a lot of fun with quite a bit of build variety, which is good.
Cool. Well, I've just been
I just think it's really cool that we have more indie ARPGs. I think it's a space that really lends itself for indie stuff. So yeah, I checked it out as well. I'm too heavily invested into POE too. So, but yeah, I checked it out on your stream as well. Look nice. Look very nice.
Well, just talking about you playing POE too, you've been on a crafting binge lately. I just want to ask you, like, have you always been a crafter, or is this something new you've just been doing in this drought?
Yes and no. I recently got into crafting, I think like 3 weeks ago now or something. Yeah, I've been doing it with Drake, and he has been teaching me all of this stuff. And yeah, the thing is about crafting in PoE 2 now, and that might also be something we will probably talk about on the podcast as well at some point. Crafting needs some improvement. It's super fun for someone like me who I really like the short-term dopamine kind of stuff, because it does feel a little bit like a slot machine.
I mean, who doesn't like gambling?
Yeah, it just feels like that. It has a definite sense to it. It is fun though. I am surprised that so many people are actually interested in that type of content. So yeah, that is what has kind of kept the league alive for me a little bit over the past 2 weeks, going into that whole rabbit hole of doing the crafting. So yeah.
Are you a big crafter,
it's fun.
Miso?
No, not at all. I need to get lessons from Rabbit, to be honest, because well, the problem is, we talked about this last time. There's just no real, like, I don't gain currency. I don't earn currency. That's the problem. I don't really play the game very efficiently, so I don't get enough currency to really start crafting anything serious. And whenever I do get to a point of like crafting, I usually just drop the build and head off to another build. So because I'm always jumping builds, getting to the end game crafting portion is doesn't really happen that often.
Same. That's exactly how I feel about crafting. To me, when I think of that, just does not dangerously dive too deep in this topic, but when I think about like crafting, I think of, well, I could use this divine and I can turn this into an entire build for a new character, or I could slam it into an item and maybe get like a 5% DPS upgrade. And like, to me, like, the value of fun versus like what I like, an entire new build or a slight upgrade. You know, that's where I come at the crossroads with. But it's just different play styles, I guess. Yeah, but I guess that's too close to POE topic talk. Then I know that's going to be an entire episode probably is crafting, because I think we could all go deep on that. But let's just go into POE 2 talk now. Let's talk about the news that we've gotten. We have Gamescom coming up August 20th through 24th. It is 1 week before 0.3 launch. Gamescom is just a big convention for video gaming that happens every year in Germany. And what's cool is they're doing a boss kill event there. And what's specifically cool about it is they are going to be showcasing new bosses that have not been seen yet. And my question, I guess, really, I mean, obviously that's cool. We're going to see new bosses leaked a little bit earlier. But my question for you guys is, when you see events like this, do you get would you be excited to play them yourself online, even though you're not taking place in Gamescom? When you see this, do you feel like you're missing out on the event? Would you like GGG to make these type of things playable for us? Or are you just like, whatever, I'll wait a week and it comes out?
I mean, I personally, when I first saw that, I was hoping that it would be something that I could play in, just because, you know, we're all foaming at the mouth for PoE content, like foaming at the mouth for PoE content. Like, all of us just want something new to do, and this is just like an opportunity for us to at least get a little bit. It's not a ton, but it's a little bit, and also it would like imply some sort of reward or like some sort of like prize for either participation or maybe like making it to the top or something. It would just be nice. I don't know. It's been a while, been too long. And then when I saw that update, I was like, oh, finally content. And then it's like, wait, never mind. You got to be at Gamescom.
Yeah, I think like Miso said, we just need this kind of stuff. We need boss rush events. We need more stuff like the act speedrun kind of event races. I think those were fun, but yeah, I think content like this that they are now teasing with the Gamescom stuff is just, it's just why not give it to us? I don't really get it. We just need more stuff, and especially in PoE 2, I think having these boss type event stuff is just, it would just be amazing in a game where boss fights can be this amazing. And I feel like PoE 2 has a huge opportunity to have incredible boss content. Yeah, please give it to me. Pump it into my veins directly, please.
Yeah. You won't hear positive things said about Diablo 3 too often, I imagine, on this podcast, but one of the things I really loved about Diablo 3 was its leaderboards. Like, I'm a big leaderboard guy. I love like being able to like, I want to be number one at this. I want to be like, or at least be able to like see where you stack up to other people in terms of like your skill level. Right? Those have always been very important to me as a gamer. And I love anything that can have a leaderboard or some form of goal to it, whether it's like speedrun challenges, whether it's boss kill events. When I originally saw the post, it said there's going to be a leaderboard that would be displayed. And I was like, oh, cool, like a leaderboard. Yeah, it's going to have a prize, like Miso said. And then it's just for the people there, which is great for them, obviously. But, we wouldn't be PoE players if we weren't a little bit selfish at times. So,
yeah, I mean, like, honestly, like Rabbit said, PoE 2 is like kind of all about bosses. Like, that is, I'd say, at least what I've seen as like the original idea is like the draw. But I don't know. It does kind of feel like, I wonder if that's like even like a direction that they can take the game a little bit more towards, because I don't really feel like the game itself is like super focused around bosses right now. It's the pinnacle bosses are just kind of like whatever, they just kind of get one shot. I really wonder if like they do end up taking the game more towards like a, boss type of like more, like, it's not focused, but like just a little bit more emphasis on it.
Yeah. When I think of these pre-generated characters and like how you handpick the 15 bosses, you give a pre-generated character so you know the DPS going into it, and then you make sure all 15 of the bosses are scaled to where they're not getting one shot, right? You're actually getting good, challenging encounters, and then they'll make it to where like the final boss of this, event is, a good 3 to 5 minute fight. That's that really showcases the depth of the fights. You can set it up in a way on GGG's end to where you're not just getting like these pre-builds that are like one-shotting every boss, and you actually get to see all the encounters. I think it could be great as not just a event like that, but as a, I don't know, what do they call them in this game? Like, they call them events, like race events and like stuff like that, boss kill events. Like those being in PoE 2, I would participate in them often.
Yeah.
I think I said it last week on the episode last week as well. I'm not sure what we were talking about, but I think I already said it last week. I am just longing for more boss type content, especially longer boss fights. They have amazing boss fights already in PoE 1, and other games do it as well. And people always draw like the comparison a little bit to Souls-like games or to the Souls games with PoE 2. And I want boss fights like that. I want to have phase changes. I want to have like actual 2-minute boss fights where I have to dodge mechanics, where I have to do this certain type of stuff, and it just needs more. It's so much potential. I think when they design stuff like Zesht or King in the Mist or whatever, or Arbiter even, I think they didn't have in mind that it would come down to, okay, what can I build now to just actually one-shot this? If this is actually just the end game boss or the hardest boss content, I would be very, very disappointed if that ends up being the end of all things when it comes to boss content. I want stuff like Maven. I want stuff like Uber Shaper or whatever. And I want to, like I said it last week, I want to dodge things. I want to have phase 2 coming in. I want to be like, I need this. And I think PoE 2 is perfect for that because the game looks amazing. Like we said already, the sound design is amazing. Every area that you come into, like the T4 Zesht area and stuff, it just looks amazing. We just need more challenging bosses. I mean, yeah, maybe this whole boss rush event on Gamescom is already a little bit of a sign that we're gonna go maybe in a direction like this. We got the monolith as well on the latest patch, which is a little bit underwhelming in my opinion as well, because it's just boss dead, and then you get some runes, and but I want more.
I actually think that's kind of funny that you mention it now that like PoE 2 is supposed to have a bit more of a focus on the boss side of things, but then at the same time, PoE 1 seems to have the better designed bosses. Like they're not getting like one shot and melted. Like some of them, like you can definitely get a build to kill them very quickly, but it's kind of a huge investment to get there. Whereas in PoE 2, you can get the one-shotting bosses pretty quickly.
I think you guys play meta builds too much. Like I when it comes to like, at least me, when I think of Citadel bosses, like like there's plenty of times that you can one-shot Citadel bosses, especially but if you're like juicing the maps, like I found that Citadel bosses, like I can always get a good fight. And I feel like the Citadel bosses, not like random side bosses, but Citadel bosses specifically, they hold up comparably to PoE 1 bosses, mechanically speaking. Obviously, if you're one-shotting them, you're not seeing them, but a lot of them, like Jamin Ra, like he's got 2 phases, like the upper ground phase, and then when he cuts the train in half, you have the lower ground phase, distinct phases with different abilities that like, those are really cool fights, in my opinion. Those fights are like on those are what I'm hoping for the future of all PoE 1 fights or PoE 2 fights, is on that level. And that's where I guess I'm holding my standards to. And I don't think, at least when I just played through PoE 1, most of the bosses weren't up to that standard. It wasn't until I got deep into the end game that I started seeing bosses that had like multiple mechanics at least. But I don't know, at least in the campaign in PoE 2, you immediately, like, if you're not in a speed leveling build, like that first fight with the Count, that's a sick fight.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, I think that the boss, like the thing is, the bosses themselves aren't badly designed. I think the bosses do have good design, but the problem is just like the scaling of the bosses versus where our builds are at. A lot of times just ends up being, unless you're playing like a super off meta build, which I would say the majority of Path of Exile players probably don't play. You're kind of making a joke out of a lot of the bosses, which again, I would like to see a little bit of a change there.
Yeah, even like the only time I don't, like I play mostly off meta builds, and like I can one shot most bosses unless it's a delirium juice map. When you start adding delirium juice, that's when my off meta builds start falling off. But for the most part, yes, it is very quickly. Like I can go from like white maps to red maps almost always. Like I can start like immediately once I've optimized my gear around better resistance at level 65. I can almost immediately jump into Waystone 15s and just juice and power level to 90. Just because I don't know where the damage scaling comes from. That is just like way too maybe it's gem skill level is way too easy to get early on. Maybe because you have like +6 levels to weapons like at level 60 and stuff, and that's what's juicing all of the spell damage immediately in the end game. I'm not sure, but there is definitely there's a moment, at least with all of my builds, where it's like, okay, now I've stopped playing the game and I have to get to the point where it's hard because everything just dies for like a very large period of time.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, so let's move on to our next bit of news here. We've got a Monk Ascendancy was leaked through sound files. We have the Sun Worshipper playing a death animation, death sound around the Alkalite, the Invoker Monk, and now a martial artist. I've always I did a tier list of the Ascendancies going into 0.2, and both of the Monk Ascendancies were pretty low on the list for me, just mainly from a theme perspective. As someone who didn't play POE 1 heavily, like I never really cared about Acolyte of Chillula. I never really understood the lore of it. And then the Invoker Monk was okay, but I've always wanted like a brawly type monk. So this has been like one of my top requests. So if this is coming in the next patch, I'm obviously super hyped.
Do we know where this came? Like, is this just like because what I'm thinking about is like, this is recent news, right? In terms of like what people have found.
Literally, I saw it on Reddit today.
Yeah, so I mean, because I would assume that some of the other stuff, like for example, Druid has probably been in the game for a while. Huntress was in the game for a while. So given that this just appeared, I'm a little bit more hesitant to say that it might be coming next, because some of these other classes have had quite a bit of time to cook. But it would be cool to see something interesting and just like out of left field, out of nowhere, come into play.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know if that means it's next, but I am excited it's a martial artist, if that's what it is, right? Rabbit, do you have a...
Yeah, I actually think I might be huffing on the copium here, but I honestly think we get 2 new classes, I think 0.3, and in my opinion, 3 Ascendancies.
That's a copium, dog. That's copium, dog.
That would be insane.
Can I be the glass half full type person here and set the expectation for 2 new classes and 3 Ascendancies? So I'm hoping, like, I have very, very, very high expectations for the next update. So, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed that I have very high expectations, because I think they know they have to hit big here, and I think the Druid is a certainty. I'm guessing a lot of people are now saying the Shadow, of course, because I think we're going to talk about that as well. I think most people have seen it so far, that the Shadow was kind of leaked in some type of way. And it would also make a little bit of sense, in my opinion, from the passive tree kind of thing, because that side of the passive tree is pretty fleshed out, and we already have a few things retaining to daggers and stuff, and that could also be a certainty. And then I hope we get some Ascendancies on top of that. So yeah, I'm going for high expectations here. I don't care. I will not be dissatisfied anyway. If I get one new class to play, I'm fine, and I think I'm right.
Well, we can go ahead and transition to that topic. We're going to talk about Druid versus Shadow. We've had a lot of new classes, speculations coming up. The Shadow got teased in a POE 1 post by GGG themselves. There was some cosmetics that were announced, and they were showing off the cosmetic, how it looked in POE 2, and the character they did it on was a Shadow. So that's why people are assuming Shadow is coming. For me personally, I have never once seen a clip of GGG saying the words Druid is soon. The only thing people go off of is a video from 2 years ago where they showed 10 minutes of Druid footage of one Ascendancy bear, and people have always been assuming from that one 10-minute video that, well, since they had 10 minutes of footage, Druid has to be ready, right? It's got to be on the horizon. It's got to be almost here. I have never once thought that Druid was on the horizon personally, based off of what I've seen GGG said. Maybe there's something I've missed, but have you guys always just had this like instinct that Druid was coming?
I mean, I did as well. Mainly, I think maybe they said something about it. I don't know. Maybe I missed it.
I don't know.
But the reason why I thought maybe Druid was coming was one because everybody's so hyped about it. So GG might be listening like, oh, well, people really want this next. Maybe we should try to work on this and make it the next class. But also the other thing is that you think about it this way, right? They showed gameplay of 2 classes at this point that are not, well, before endpoint 1. They showed at that point, they had 2 classes with gameplay. One was Huntress, and then the other one was Druid. They came out with Huntress already. So then the natural, I guess, place where my mind goes to is that Druid is coming next. But maybe that's just me.
I mean, there is some stuff. It's not like factual stuff, but apparently a GGG staff member, I'm seeing
I've got
the post right now.
Right here.
It's going Druid likely to be the next class release. No information on when that will be yet. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
I got.
Where did they say this?
I'm posting. It's in from a Discord post. I'm posting it in our chat right now.
Can you post it in the Twitch chat for me?
Yeah.
Just so I can click it.
Yeah, Fair Shadow, and Viperess kind of confirmed it. Yeah. I was always under the impression, I don't know where it's coming from, but I thought that it was planned for Dawn of the Hunt because, in my opinion, that would also make some sense because Dawn of the Hunt, it could have been Huntress and Druid because I don't know.
So this post was made May 14th. So like people have been hyped about Druid since like before the new year. So I wonder if there was more stuff said from before this. So they have confirmation that they think it is coming next. So that's good signs. Will Shadow be next too? That is a possibility. For me personally, the whole topic we had today was Druid versus Shadow, not like if we're going to get both. So if we were to pick one, I would personally prefer Shadow. There's never really been a Druid in any game that has like really resonated with me, except for maybe Classic WoW's Druid, because that's more like a jack of all trades type deal. But like, I don't know. I don't like D2 Druid. So this is why I want to say Assassin, or excuse me, Shadow, is because I'm a trap assassin made in D2. I love traps. So just in general, Shadow is what would call to me more, just from I prefer traps. I am excited for Druid. I'm not saying I'm not excited. The idea of Thorns Druid, I feel like Thorns and Druid are going to pair very well together. Like you could have a Porcupine Ascendancy, GGG make it happen. You could have a bark skin type ascendancy. Like there's ways you can make Thorns and Druid, but in general, bear form and Thorns, I'm hyped for it, but I would prefer Shadow. Shadow's cool.
Personally, I am more excited for Druid just because I am typically a guy that likes classes with like gimmicks, and transforming is like one of the biggest gimmicks that I ever always see in games across different genres, different types. Like transformation classes are kind of the classes that I do end up leaning towards a lot of times. Though at the end of the day, it's more of like I'm interested and I try it out, and then I usually kind of play other classes. But still, I personally really like the transformation type of classes. I think they're really cool. They're really fun. And it seems like, at least because I was reviewing some of the footage that they released originally at Gamescom, and they had something really interesting where shape-shifting had its own passive tree points. Like, how it has the weapon set points, right?
Oh.
The shape-shifting classes had its own set of weapon set points, which could be interesting because in a way that means that you're kind of getting 3 weapon sets as Druid. So there could be some fun build stuff, some fun stuff that you could do there to make, I don't know, something really interesting. Who knows?
I always assumed it would work like Demon Form did from Infernalist, where it would just be like this own little, you transform into it, doesn't have its weapons, so it'd have like some passive +5 skills to melees or something like that. That's how I always assumed it worked. The idea of it having its own passives, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like its own weapon set, basically. So you have weapon set 1, weapon set 2. It had its own weapon set called like Shapeshift. I don't know if they're going to change really it. Cool. It was like that at the beginning.
I'm guessing you're hyped for Druid, Rabbit?
Yeah, I think I'm going back to D2 again. I think it's always a good assumption to assume that they are going to look at what D2 did for a lot of stuff. I think it's very apparent already that they like Diablo 2. So I'm going to assume we get a shapeshifting ascendancy. I'm going to assume we get a caster ascendancy for a druid. And then probably the third one is going to be pets. So that is basically what it was in Diablo 2. I think shapeshifting is an absolute set. I think having animals as your companions and stuff is pretty much set. And I think the way it was in Diablo 2, it was tornadoes, it was spell physical basically, and that would also make sense in the PoE 2 kind of thing, because spell physical attacks or spell physical is completely unused right now. I think Bone Cage or Bone Storm, whatever it is, are the only spells in the game right now that are even close to being used when it comes to spell physical. And yeah, that would be amazing. I think that is probably going to be first on that one, because it would also open up a lot more itemization and that type of thing, because a lot of stuff that you have in the game right now that has spell physical damage is just useless. And yeah, then we have 3 awesome new ascendancies. I'm hoping for some wolves or some ravens or like a worm type thing going with me. I'll 100% go pet druid at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I was, again, looking at the footage, I think you actually hit the nail exactly on the head. I think it really is just going to be like D2 Druid in that sense, because they had like the spellcaster was like the kind of the primal stuff where it was like, oh, the nature elements, tornadoes, volcano, and like thunderstorms and things like that. And they also had they showed off the bear transformation, but they also showed off summoning wolves. So it's pretty much exactly that. And if you look at where they are on the tree as well, you'll see that a lot of it is around there. You do have those elements there. There's a lot of minion stuff at the beginning of the tree, or like there's some minion stuff, and there's like, elemental spells and transformation stuff. So it pretty much is just like what you said. They're gonna go off a D2 Druid probably.
I'm curious. I'm curious how they're going to handle like the skills for bear form and stuff. Someone told me, I think it was last Epoch, where you can be a druid in bear form, but you use skills like Cyclone and stuff. Maybe it's not last Epoch. I don't know which one it is, but I'm curious if like when you're in their shapeshifts, you're gonna be limited to only these skills that are like bear skills, or will it transform other skills? Like, is it gonna transform Sunder into a bear Sunder or something? But it depends on how they execute that kind of stuff. I like the idea of a critter-based druid. I didn't think of that. I haven't seen the footage of the wolf summons you guys are referring to. I think that sounds really cool. I didn't think of minion-based druid, but that makes sense. Like, druids would have an army of critters from the forest and stuff. That'd be sick. That'd be the first one I want to try.
I mean, at least during the footage that they released at Gamescom, and actually, maybe they might release some teasers at Gamescom too, which would be kind of exciting. But off of the footage from the original Druid footage from Gamescom, how Jonathan said it worked is that there will be certain skills that will transform you. So you have your bear skills, you have your human spell skills, and whenever you used a human skill, it would transform you back to human. You use a bear skill, it will transform you into a bear. But when you transform into a bear, you stay a bear until you do like a dodge roll or like use another transformation or like a human spell. That's kind of how it worked in general. I don't know if they're going to change it, but that's at least how they showed it off. It was a long time ago, so things have changed. Like if you look at the video, they still have like 5 potions, and there you still have like the skill gems leveling up as you gain experience and things like that. So it was a long time ago.
Cool. I mean, you guys have any thoughts on Shadow? Are you guys big like assassin rogue type players? Or like, I like the point that you pointed out, Rabbit, that side of the tree is like really fleshed out. It's like, based off the heat map we saw last week, that side of the tree is like the most dominant in forms of play styles right now, obviously because, Amazon's super popular right now. But I imagine that's not going to be much different if Shadow were to drop. I love Shadows, so to be honest,
Yeah, like we said already, this goes back to the crit discussion again. It would make sense. It would probably be a very, very strong class and probably very, very strong ascendancies just by the nature of it being on that side of the tree and all the skills there just being very, very good. It will probably be crit based again, and that goes perfectly into the next topic that we were going to talk about. So yeah, I'm super excited for Shadow. I think it could be an insanely cool playstyle. Daggers opens up a lot of like the heavy movement style type abilities. I imagine like stuff like blinking in, or not literally blinking, but like blink type stuff, blinking in with dagger storms, cyclone type stuff. I'm super excited. I'm super excited. If it's actually Druid, Shadow, whatever for the next ones, I think that will open up the game even more, and it's just gonna show more of the variety we can have in classes and ascendancies. And yeah, it's just super fucking exciting.
Misa, what do you think the weapon for Druid is?
It's at least what they've showed off is it looks like a staff. So they're going to be using.
So we're not getting something new.
No, it doesn't look like we're getting something new, because if you again looking at the footage, the weapon, it's not a weapon like, you know how we have like Gemini bow and like all these different types of bows, right? For the staff, I've never seen a staff that looks like that in terms of its base, but it, at least to me, seems pretty close to what I would consider a staff for in PoE 2.
Primal.
Yeah,
that's what Jeff
it
says.
is. Yeah,
Primal
that is what
is like the skill archetype.
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be claws for some reason. Is claws gonna be paired with like rogue, or not rogue, a shadow?
I mean, I personally think they might not bring claw, but here, let me. I'm gonna pull up an image for you guys, just so you guys can see. This is what we had originally from Jonathan for the Gamescom footage, and you can see right here. This is the weapon, and that to me looks like a staff. That does not look like a quarter staff. That does not look like anything else. It looks like a staff, unless it's gonna be a new weapon type that's similar to staff. I looks like a staff to me.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be a completely new weapon type. It's going to be close to what occult spells are. Like that doesn't encompass like new wands or whatever, but it's just a skill type that is. I'm going to guess primal is going to be Druid. Yeah. So and that can encompass every single one. Yeah. So yeah. It's exactly like the occult skills, for example. So yeah,
that was just my assumption. Then I guess I had a poor assumption, assuming that every class was going to come with a new weapon type, just because I saw people always saying like, well, this sword is going to come with gladiator or duelist or whatever. You know, maces are going to come with marauder. You know, for some reason that made my brain think that Druid's going to come with something.
Yeah, and claws are also dex in PoE 1, I think, right? They're dex int.
Good point. I think so.
Yeah,
interesting. Cool.
Let's see what we can get.
So is there any ascendancies that you, so like we know we're going to get in one new class at least. Rabbit thinks we're getting two. What about ascendancies? We talked about the brawler, the martial artist monk. Is there anything from any of our existing ascendancies that you're really itching for? I think sorceress needs some love, maybe. I feel like right now Chronomancer and Stormweaver are in a little bit of a lull period right now, as we're not like they're fun, but they're not at the top of the meta anymore. I don't know. I think sorceress needs something. I think fire needs something in general. You know, Infernalist didn't really deliver on the fire, so I think we need like a pyromancer. I don't know, something else.
Yeah, I was just about to say, when you were mentioning the sorceress, I was just about to say it needs to be fire in that case. Stormweaver is pretty clearly very lightning based. Chronomancer is kind of an all-rounder. I think there is most likely going to be a pyromancer, or if I had the choosing here, I would most likely go for a pyromancer, because it's very, very unfortunate that the sorceress class has so many very, very cool looking and very, very cool working fire spells that I just, when you compare it to any lightning spell, due to the ailment being so much better, it's a little bit unfortunate. And I think sorceress is the best bet to actually get some more fire stuff. I think someone today in my chat also said, like when it comes to martial artists, that could also be something that is a little bit fire based, like maybe like fire punches and stuff. That could also be a little bit fire based, I guess. Most likely it's going to be physical though. Otherwise, ascendancy wise, I think sorceress probably should be on the top spot when it comes to new ascendancies, in my opinion, because it just makes sense. So many people are longing for fire stuff to be used again.
Either that or they add fire stuff and then it's still not good and people are sad. That would be the worst. But actually, I wanted to bring something up too, because before we completely move off of like the weapon stuff and like the druid stuff, we did have a comment in chat with a image that they pulled up. This was apparently from Exile Con. So it's a wheel for the actual skill tree, right? Or the passive tree, and it shows all the weapons and where they are on the tree. So this kind of shows us what weapons are coming, and I've actually never seen this before, so this is really cool.
That is awesome. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Who shared that?
Yeah,
it was Isaac.
Isaac, thanks, man.
We had claws here down in the 100% deck, so definitely not over on this side. And then we had flails over here with scepters. Scepters are already in the game. Flails are not. But it makes sense again that Druid might be using staves up here on the inside of things. So pretty cool. But other than that, going back onto the topic about ascendancies, I mean, personally, and this is just baby me being selfish, but I want axes. I think it's an absolute shame. And I've always said this from day one. I thought it was a mistake bringing warrior first. And historically, at least from my opinion, blunt weapons are usually one of the least popular weapon types and archetypes in most games, I'd say. Like most people, when it comes to maces, I always think like whenever I think back to like MMOs and things like that, it's always been one of the least popular weapon types to bring into games in general. So I was very surprised when I saw that they only had one like strength like class, and it was a mace class as opposed to bringing something like axes or, you know, swords is typically kind of your bread and butter when it comes to like these fantasy weapons. So it's like, in my mind, I'm like, how could you not add a Path of Exile in ARPG with swords or axes? And they didn't add either. They just had maces. So I personally want Marauder to come because of that. I know that perhaps balance wise, we might want another mage class or something like that. But personally, I want to see Marauder. And also, let's be real, mages kind of received a lot of love. They literally have 3 classes, whereas like on the inside of things, whereas the other ones only have 2, so or 1 or 0.
Yeah, as a like I've made warriors and melee classes in most games. I've leveled more warriors than anything else in PoE 2. And it's funny enough that you talk about maces. I am traditionally a mace guy. I always like to use maces in fantasy games. And I agree with you completely. It is always the more niche thing. Like swords and axes are always just more popular. So anytime I play MMOs with maces, it's always cheaper to play maces. So it's funny that you say that. I agree. I would love Marauder. I would love warriors. We have a topic planned for a future episode talking about warriors in general, but I think Marauder would be cool. I do agree with you that the maces is an interesting choice, especially since a lot of the mace skills are very slow. Slow is not good for melee. Yet slower means you have to be deliberate and precise. And for a new player in a new game, that's not the best way to start, right? So I agree. No axes or swords is interesting. I think swords is supposed to be the mercenary class, duelist. Oh yeah, they did say it would be the last thing added. Yeah, so that makes me sad. I'm a big Cyclone main. The only reason I fell into Thorns is because Cyclone's not in the game. And all ARPGs, I play Spin to Win.
I am also a Spin to Win guy. I love Cyclone, Righteous Fire, that type of playstyle. Hold down one button or just walk and just go and just clear the screen.
There's a zen to those builds, or you just like turn your brain off and you just float through the map, and it's my favorite type of play style. And until Cyclone gets added, you know, I'm not at peace. But I would love more warrior stuff. I agree there. Are you a warrior guy, Rabbit?
I have always been pretty mage focused. So I hate that I have to talk about Diablo 2 again, but my main class in Diablo 2 was always Sorceress. Most people that have ever played that game know how good the Sorceress was in Diablo 2. I was always pretty caster focused, and I started off my whole PoE 2 thing only playing casters as well. I played basically only Spark Stormweaver for the majority of last league. And then I went back into my old habits on this league and played the Blood Mage Spark. So I really like the whole caster thing. I just recently got into the warrior type aesthetic as well. So I'm still new to it, but I think like we already talked about a little bit, the mace playstyle is not really something for me. I still remember the Diablo 3 Whirlwind Barb, and I, like you said, with the cyclone type thing, I am more that kind of person. I like the whole spin to win. I like the fast characters, the moving around. I'm not the biggest fan of the two-handed mace playstyle, since it's just I would think it will end up being the slowest weapon in PoE 2. I don't think there is.
I think GGG has stated that it is. Like in the Chinese interview they did recently, they specifically said they wanted maces to deliberately be slow.
Yeah. And I just don't like the playstyle. I get that so many people are into that type of playstyle. With Warrior, it's like the big hits, the big satisfying bonks and stuff. It's just not really the thing I'm like looking for. I like ranged. I like being fast. I like moving around. I'll probably stay on the right side of the passage tree for the vast majority of PoE 2. So, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm so excited. I think we are still getting the best Ascendancies and the best classes still to come. I think there's so much amazing stuff to come. Marauder, that's gonna be Christmas for me.
We're all looking forward to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I've lived in the bottom left-hand side of the tree just because where all the thorn stuff is, I guess. I've just naturally spent a lot of time there.
That makes sense.
I've only done a few casters. It's just it's a very different game when you have access to the energy shield and all the evasion stuff. The bottom left side needs some work for sure.
Yeah, I typically, thinking about it for me, I don't really live in a certain part. I think Monk is probably my least made class, to be honest. But
really? For some reason, my brain registered you as a Monk main. For some reason.
I mean,
all the builds I've seen have been quarterstaff builds for you. I don't know.
I mean, one of my most popular builds is the Gathering Storms Flicker Strike Monk. So that's recent too. That's my most recent build. So that's probably why. But that was my first Monk build. I've made a couple of Infernalist builds. I've made a couple of Deadeye builds. I've made a Gemling build. I have made a Titan build that I don't think ever really got off the ground that much, but I did have a Titan build, and I'm playing a Corrupting Cry Titan right now. And then it's just been Monk is like the one that I would probably spent the least amount of time with in terms of like multiple class builds. Just, I don't know. It's actually funny because when I was doing a hardcore Soul Self-Dome challenge, people were asking me like, what is your least favorite weapon? And I said quarterstaff, because in general, I don't know. The quarterstaff skills don't really interest me too much, but I
like the palm skills, which is not quarterstaff. So
yeah, I mean, palm skills are cool. Like I think, and I may be hoping that we'll get with martial artists a little bit more of that, like you said, right? CQC, like unarmed kind of like play style, because I typically do like that play style a lot.
Cool. Yeah, for me, it's like I'm melee, so I would really like Marauder. Yeah, since you said Marauder, I'm just thinking about like how axes are going to feel. Like if we just had a slightly faster melee, Molten Blast was the closest thing I feel Mace has had to a fast moving skill, but it moves you backwards, so it's not fast moving. It's just.
I thought Molten Blast moves you forward.
Which one am I thinking of? Which one? The one that pushes you back, where you're like, you're always going. Oh no, it is the one that you're going forward. No, yeah, you're right. I got it backwards. Yeah, you're going forward, and it made bossing awkward for me, so I just stopped using.
Yeah,
that's where I got backwards. Yeah, it's the only fast-moving one. I guess you count shield charge, but you don't even need a mace for that. So
I'm hoping that they change things like leap slam and whatever to be able to be used with maces and swords and stuff like that, because it would be a shame that leap slam is only able to be used by maces. That'll be.
I thought the same about Thunderous Leap. Like, I felt that was a shame that I could only use it with spears. I don't know why. Yeah, I agree. Those need to be opened up more because there's the utility option to them, and yeah, there's a lot of skills like that I feel like could be opened up to more weapon types. Like wand and staff skills should be like the same, you know, like, or not wand, like the ones on the
Spells.
weapons themselves.
Yeah, the non-martial weapons. The spells you can use with whatever, which is nice, but I feel
Yeah.
like the martial weapon stuff kind of is linked specifically to certain weapons.
Yeah, I don't like that right now. I guess that's a whole nother topic. I don't know if we want to go into that. We're already in the warrior side of the tree, so let's just go transition to the deepest tower stuff since we were just talking about warriors. Deepest tower has taken over this league. I feel like it's a comment I see a lot. Deepest tower is getting deleted in the next patch, which I think like that's just people not understanding where the power of these builds are coming from. Deepest tower is not getting changed. It's the low life aspect scaling of it that's a little bit out of control. But let's just talk about Deepest Tower real quick. Deepest Tower, it makes it to where enemies in your presence are counted as low life. Low life is 35% life. And baseline Deepest Tower does nothing for you. You want it to have more scaling with it. And the way you get scaling with it is through two major ways right now. One is through the support gem Execute, which in 0.2 got buffed from 40% to 50% more damage. More if you're new to POE. Words in Path of Exile have insane meaning. It's like more versus what's the other one?
Less reduced.
Less reduced, like all of these things.
Increased.
And more is multiplicative. So Execute doing 50% more damage is a lot. And then you have the passive tree, which is where I think most of the damage scaling from low life builds come from. You have the node finality and stars align. Finality increases your low life damage by 120%. And then you have stars align, which makes your lucky hits makes your low life hits lucky, which when compared with combined with something like heft is a huge damage increase. But then from the small passive nodes, you get an additional 240% increased damage. And if you're a Titan on top of that, it's an additional 120. So you're getting an insane amount of increased low life damage from the passive tree. And then if you're a Titan, it's even more.
Yep.
I feel like that's where the problem lies, not with Deepest Tower. I always see Deepest Tower needs to get nerfed. You can't nerf Deepest Tower because then you remove low life builds from the game. Those low life clusters are the problem, and potentially Execute might be too strong. But I really feel like it's the low life clusters. What are your guys' thoughts on Deepest Tower? Do you think like low life builds are just like not balanceable because of the helmet, or is it other factors that are making low life builds too strong, or is it everything else is just not strong enough? Low life builds aren't a problem. It's just everything else isn't good enough.
I mean,
I think you already said it a little bit that I think the Deepest Tower is obviously like super fine. I think that is a cool mechanic, and I think changing that or completely nuking that, as some people have been saying, I think that would be a big mistake. I think it's a very, very cool mechanic, and it's something that is gonna be utilized most likely for the foreseeable future here. But I think, as you said it as well a little bit, I think it's just a little bit too much. One factor is that it's a little bit too much on the passive tree, that you can just get way too many nodes like that on the passive tree that make it very, very strong. And like we already talked about last week on the last podcast, the lack of options is, in my opinion, the biggest problem here, because you are being forced, if you're not crit based or if you cannot scale through crit or anything other than that, you are kind of getting forced into using a build that is using the Deepest Tower. It was a big thing before in a lot of the builds that were not using Deepest Tower to have a Deepest Tower weapon switch. And then you just go for the weapons at 2 points for the nodes that you have just mentioned. And then you go into T4 Zesht or whatever, the T4 Pinnacle bosses with a Deepest Tower weapon swap. And just annihilate the boss like that, and then switch back for your mapping purposes or whatever. I don't think that shows that deepest tower or necessarily the nodes are the problem. I think that shows that we are lacking options in that department when it comes to scaling on a non-crit basis, and also talking about that side of the tree kind of a little bit. I think we just need more scaling, and the reason why so many people are taking the deepest tower for that is not because that is OP, but we're lacking options there, I think.
I mean, I personally think that deepest tower is fine, but the thing is, it becomes a bit of a problem when, and we've talked about this last podcast too, last episode, when you are able to combine deepest tower with crit. I think it's just a little bit too accessible on the crit side of things, where the reason why deepest tower has become such a prevalent item is because every single class basically can use it. Like every one of the popular classes pretty much can use it, unless you're up like at the Sork area, then you're probably not really going to use it as much. But the popular classes right now with Deadeye and I guess I'm using Monk, we just reach that one little cluster. We don't even need to take both, right? And then if you want to take both, you can just use a from nothing diamond and then just slot right into it. I think we can look at this from a couple perspectives, right? I think one, you can take a look at it about from a perspective of, hey, and I said this about Gemling too, because people were saying that instead of nerfing, well, they ended up nerfing both Gemling and the items. But I said that you're going to have to nerf Gemling because with attribute stacking in the future, if you don't nerf Gemling, you're always going to have to think about future items that are focused around attribute stack and be like, oh, but we have Gemling, so we can't make this item because it's gonna be too powerful for that, right? So it's kind of from the same perspective of like, oh, we can't do this with low life or make this cool low life thing because we have deepest tower. So in that aspect, it can be seen like maybe deepest tower should be the nerf. But then also I think it's like a twofold problem right now because it is way too easy to get those low life nodes. There's only 2 clusters and those clusters do so much. I think it's about like, again, maybe I think deepest tower does need a little bit of an adjustment just because always being low life to me seems a little bit strong when you think about it, because in the future you can never really make strong low life stuff, which in general low life is, I'd say, a really hard really hard requirement to fill in general, unless you have something very specific like a deepest tower. But again, always low life does seem a little bit too strong to me, so I think it's kind of twofold of making it so that the requirements for deepest tower is like not always low life, but having some sort of like drawback, right? Some sort, or not drawback, but just like a different requirement. Maybe it's like, oh, at 75% health or 80% health, right? Or something like that, as counted as low life. And I think that they probably do need to spread the clusters a little bit more and not make it so focused, and so have 2 extremely powerful clusters where it literally can just be picked up for a couple points by anybody.
Yeah, I think the clusters are the biggest issue. It's like you said, there's a lot of builds that use deepest tower that don't even dip far down from like the northeast side of they'll be primarily in the northeast side, and then they'll just kind of dip down with a weapon set swap, and they'll get that one cluster, and suddenly it like amps their damage by like 300% or whatever, and it's with a single helm swap as well. I disagree. Like, I'm not sure deepest tower needs that kind of nerf yet. I think that's how it works in POE 1. I've never done a low life build in POE 1, but I think deepest tower functions the exact same way in POE 1 and POE 2. It's just in presence, low life. I don't know if I would like that might be a step they have to do eventually, like reduce it to 90% or 80% or something. But I feel like it's the clusters for me. They have to break up those clusters. One of the things is it's like 8, maybe 9 it's 8 small passive nodes, all that are 30% each. That is insane. That is so much. And then when you talk about how Titan can increase that by hulking form by another 50%, that is so much damage just from small passive. I think that whole area just needs to be broken up into 4 clusters with way less damage scaling on the small passive nodes. That would be where I would start. I agree, like, because if you take away that aspect from deepest tower, I would suddenly never want to play a low life build. For some reason, for me, what enables low life builds, at least right now, how I would want to play them, is if it wasn't 100% life, I don't know I would venture into them.
I think the other problem is that you can combine at the moment. You can combine full life stuff and low life. Like monsters, like minions are always considered low life, but if they're at full life, they all still also considered full life. Which kind of like there's just too much combination that you could do with it to make it super strong. So like, for example, like my monk build uses Deepest Tower, but also uses ambush because you can basically get the ambush crit chance and then also still take advantage of the low life stuff. So I think low life in general does need to be taken a look at as well on top of the nodes. It's pretty powerful right now. And as Lockall mentioned that Deepest Tower doesn't exist in POE 1.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought it did. For some reason, I thought that was required for that was in the POE 1. Then maybe it does need a nerf then because it is like right now when I think of low life builds, it is so strong to the point that like that's what enables the builds to me. So maybe that is too powerful of a unique then. If you're not even willing to consider playing the playstyle without it, right?
Mm-hmm. At the very least, I do think they need to change the tree. It's way too powerful for way too little nodes.
I kind of have a pretty general opinion when it comes to this type of stuff. Like this is not only for the Deepest Tower type conversation. This is also for the crit conversation. This is also for the Lightning Spear conversation. I like buffs. I dislike nerfs. I like buffs. So I think always for me just personally, I think the best approach is always just buff the other stuff first. You can adjust later a little bit more, but buff the other stuff first. I think nuking Deepest Tower now in this regard, or just completely annihilating Lightning Spear, or just nerfing crit, whatever, I think that would be a mistake. I always this is like a kind of power level that everyone obviously really likes. A lot of people like that kind of playstyle right now. People like using the Deepest Tower. It's just, like I said as well on the topic just now, we just lack options, and I think people are being pushed into certain builds because we are lacking options, and I think it's on GGG to then provide us with more options. I think buff before nerf. That's kind of my general opinion on that.
Yeah,
when you think of the ceiling of the game isn't in yet, like Breach +4 is not supposed to be the hardest boss in the game. They're supposed to be tiers and tiers more difficult. So like the highest we're hitting right now might not be hard enough for future content. So when you think about just nerfing it because it's performing so well right now, it eventually might not be performing well. We don't know what GGG's ultimate like life numbers are for pinnacle content. So I agree in general with just buffs and not nerfs. I would like to not see a nerf. The only thing I would want to see change for Deepest Tower and low life builds is potentially them changing the passive tree up. But I don't want to see it nerfed personally. I don't think it's nerf worthy right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the reason why I'm saying, like, I think a change to the passive tree is a nerf. It's not a nerf to Deepest Tower, but it's nerf to low life. And I think in general, that playstyle does need to get changed, which again, as it is semantics, but at the end of the day, changing those clusters, making them more spread apart is going to be a nerf, which I do think needs to happen just because, again, it's so easy. It's not, at this point, it's not about options. Every build is a Deepest Tower build, can be a Deepest Tower build. It's not an option. It's just, you can just slap it on there for free. And that's the problem. If it was an option, then sure, don't nerf it, but it's not an option right now. You can just do it with anything.
Yeah. And I don't even say it's like a weapon.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's like there's multiple builds where people are like, why aren't you using Deepest Tower? It's like I'm actively choosing not to because I've done 3 Deepest Tower builds already. Like I am making my build worse because I don't want to do it again. And what's funny is it's not even using the weapon sweat passives like Rabbit talked about earlier. If you're super optimizing, you could just do a weapon sweat passive and not run Deepest Tower at all times. You can just choose to run Deepest Tower at all times though. So
that's what I do.
It's that good. Yeah, I think we're all kind of in agreement that something needs to change, but it's like more that other stuff also needs to change. But yeah, I just see that comment a lot. I don't know if you guys see it a lot, but I just see like Deepest Towers not surviving the patch. Deepest Towers getting nuked into the ground. I don't think that's going to happen. If anything, like Misa said, it'll be a nerf via the passive tree adjustments. Yeah.
It's, I mean, knowing GGG, it might just be both. Kind of like with Mercenary, with Gemling, they nerf both the Ascendancy and the stat stacking items. So I have a feeling it might be both.
Just get the Exile. Do it already.
Since we're talking about this side of the tree, let's talk about armor now. I don't know how many times you guys have tried to make armor builds work. I have tried many times, and to the point that in my last few Thorns builds, I have been actively getting items with evasion and energy shield on them with Thorns, despite playing on the armor side of the tree, just because there's like almost no benefit to wearing armor, and then a lot of times it just makes you slower. So there's just so much I have wrong with armor right now. I just want to start the conversation with how many armor builds have you guys, like, do you guys frequent armor builds? Because I frequented them a lot originally, even in the 0.2, I was trying them a lot for a while. And now at the point, like, even if I'm near armor nodes, I don't do armor.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's not I don't do armor when I'm even when I'm in the armor node area. It's more of like one part of me, I have tried armor builds in the past, and I've tried even going armor ES with one of my builds, and that I just ended up swapping to pure ES because it was just better. And it's just, it goes back again. You don't need that many ES nodes to make ES work either. So it might be, again, another one of those situations where the power of ES is too concentrated. But at the same time, like, armor, it's just still not very good. I think that the problem, like, one of the main problems with armor is just that when you can't, it's not just because of armor being bad, but it's also about just effective HP. In Path of Exile 1, you can get much higher HP than you can in Path of Exile 2. Like, it's just way easier to scale HP in that game because there are those HP nodes on the tree, which, that's a whole conversation in itself. But I think that one of the reasons why armor is so bad is because the HP pool is so low that you're just dying to big hits. You just get, because armor's never been great at preventing big hits, but if you have a high enough EHP or like an HP pool, you can take some of those big hits without dying in one shot. But right now, at the moment, it's just way too hard to scale HP, so that it's just never really makes sense to go armor because of that. Like, you could make armor more powerful, but honestly, I think the real issue is probably just the HP pool being so low that armor itself just becomes not as effective because you can't scale that secondary layer of defense. And energy shield, you could just scale your HP pool so high that you don't need that secondary layer of defense. So I think it's either buff armor or buff your ability to get HP.
Or both. I think it has to be both. I think just like in the other topic we talked about, it's again just a thing about like not having the options. It just pales in comparison. Even if you stack the most life and the most armor, it just absolutely pales in comparison to what energy shield can do. I am currently playing a build with 4,000 energy shield and 60% evasion. And that is the tankiest I have ever felt in the game. I played a high life, I think almost 4,000 life, and I don't know how much armor, but that build seemed like paper when it compares to evasion and energy shield, or just energy shield. At my first build that I played this league was ED Contagion, and I went up to 20,000 energy shield. How can I stack 20,000 energy shield when I can't even reach 4,000 life without compromising everything else on my build? That should not be a thing, in my opinion. Like, we should have the opportunity to make a life and armor build just as tanky as an energy shield build. I think it's just as simple as that. I don't think it just doesn't make any sense, in my opinion. And I also think stacking life or just using life as a normal base defensive layer should be more of a thing in PoE 2. When you think of defensive layers in PoE 2 right now, I don't think life is even mentioned. It is just energy shield. It is on top of energy shield. It's evasion. That's it. Why don't we have life more as a stat? Why couldn't it be more a stat that I just on any character, my base defensive layer is going to be a certain amount of life. It's always energy shield, and that is just bad in my opinion, because I shouldn't feel 10 times tankier on a Lich with 20,000 energy shield than on a Titan.
20,000.
Yeah, it was easy. Captain Lance, very, very early in the league, Captain Lance
Very early. Very early.
very early. That was like 2 weeks. I think he only played for 2 weeks. So
20k ES.
He did a Lich build that just tanked the Arbiter one-shots. And I think that's cool.
Crazy.
That is super cool. I'm not saying nerf energy shield or like kill energy shield or kill that. That is such a cool thing, but it shouldn't only be possible on energy shield. I want like, I know like character fantasy. It makes so much more sense that a Titan is tanky and stuff. It's just logical in my opinion. And yeah, why not have more? Why not have life as a normal thing for people to go to when it comes to? That is a thing in campaign as well, by the way. When you're playing campaign and when you're playing early endgame, you are looking towards life as a defensive. And that just completely stops once you go into the later endgame. And that is, I think that's another thing I said before. It's just give us more stuff. Give us more options.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that like throughout the campaign, you are actively like life scaling is very good on any class. Like it just helps you get through the campaign. And then suddenly it scales off. I have tried life scaling on very many different classes through very many different styles. I have tried doing Overleech with Kucher of Crimson, where I've gotten my life over to like 8,000 before. That's felt okay, but when you're dealing with Leech, you can still get one shot. 8k is not enough to live through one shots. I think that's the highest I've gotten my life. It's through Overleech. I've seen people, like there was builds from like Lazy Exile early on that was using that Combs chest that like removes your spirit but doubles your life. That chess piece was like combined with the grand spectrums was like getting people to really high life pools. Even doing that though, like when you're life stacking, you're also having to invest into elemental resistance cap, which is just like you're having to invest so much into the defensives to make life stacking good. That like life stacking can be good, but then it's only good in very specific situations, and it's still not as good as ES, and it's usually insanely expensive. That has been my biggest problem. Is just its a cost is not worth it for what you're getting out of it. I do agree that we need more life scaling. We need more. It cannot be none on the tree. There are some. I think there's 2 nodes that give 3% each increased maximum life. Yeah. And then you can get 6% from Grand Spectrum rubies, and like you can like that, and then you had put runes in, and that's about it right now. I feel like life stacking has to come in some form of a way. I feel like it's just a natural thought progression for the player. Like I don't think you can remove life stacking from an ARPG or a game. Like it's just for a new player's thought process. Your life going up is what makes me tanky in every single game I play. And like, you're right, Rabbit. Once you transition from campaign to late game, very quickly, life scaling starts falling off to the point where you're only getting to 2,000, 2,400 maximum life base with like life stacking on gear. And if you don't have 2,000 energy shield or evasion mixed with that, and even with that, you're probably still gonna get one shot plenty. So
yeah.
I think it's inevitable that they revisit life on the tree.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like interesting, right? If you think about what Jonathan said as to why they don't want to add life to the tree, he said that it's because it adds complexity to the tree, and they again want to make it so the game is a little bit more accessible to people. And I do agree, adding life does make the tree a little bit more complicated. And some people bring up the argument of like, oh, then get rid of ES, right? But ES is like the main like if you get rid of ES nodes, then the north part of the tree really doesn't have anything for mitigation. I wonder, like, because basically north part you get ES, and then you get the right side you get evasion, left side you get armor, right? Those are the 3, those are the 3 areas of defenses that you get on the tree. And I wonder if it's about like making the armor nodes like a hybrid node where it gives both life and armor. I don't know because like in essence, that's kind of similar to just giving ES. That way they don't have to like add life nodes, and it's same as it would be similar to just taking ES nodes.
Yeah. One thing
I don't get the whole.
So like there's one thing, like the most success I've had with armor stacking with not like lifing is when using Cloak of Flame. That's because it has like elemental damage conversion. I think it's like 25% of physical damage taken converted to fire damage. Armor gets better when you have more things like that. I've wanted a lightning version for lightning thorns for a while. Where you like overcap lightning res, like that's like the item I've played around with my chat for a while. Like if we had more armor elemental damage conversions, maybe that would help some. But I do agree that I feel like armor and life pair well together. Like I don't feel like we need to have life nodes everywhere on the tree. Like we don't need them in the north and the southeast side of the tree. Like you said, like evasion and energy shield, they don't need life nodes. But I like what you said there, that if life nodes were attached to some of the armor nodes, I don't think we need like 5% armor or life. Like there shouldn't be like just a raw 5-10% armor or life gains. But if it's attached to armor, I like that a bit more.
Yeah, maybe it's about like, again, well, it's a little bit weird too, because pure evasion builds are also kind of rough right now. It's not even just
0.1 like, they were way better, but now they're awful.
Yeah, so like in an essence, I'm thinking like maybe we even want to add some like, because somebody in chat actually had an idea that I thought was pretty interesting, saying that, you know, maybe it scales based off of like your armor gives an increase to life in general, like having more armor increase like has some sort of scalar to life, and maybe it's like giving ES or EV some of that as well, but maybe on a lower degree. But again, maybe it's all just about making EV better and like fixing acrobatics and making it not as rough, because you can't make pure EV builds, but you have to play high resire basically, because acrobatics is just such a bad place. So maybe it's about making EV just better, but maybe entertaining the idea of like having some sort of scaling with EV and armor, making life go higher, something like that.
I think it's just very simple as well. If you just compare the nodes on the passive tree, it is just I don't get the logic of life adding life nodes is gonna overcomplicate stuff. If we have nodes like Patient Barrier where we just get 60% energy shield for 1 point.
Well, my whole thing was more about you know, energy shield is the defense for the north side, evasion is the defense for the right side, and armor is the defense for the left side. So well, my point is saying that you only have one thing to worry about, whereas now if you add life onto the tree, you'll have two things to worry about. You have to worry about armor and life nodes, which again, I see their point. Yeah, I don't know how much complexity it would add, but it does make it more complex. It does at the end of the day. But which is why I was suggesting like maybe it's hybrid armor and life nodes, so you still keep the same amount of nodes and not increasing complexity. But yeah.
Yeah, I have a 26-minute Thorns feedback video on my channel, and one of the things I talk about is how like a lot of the Thorns passives, like they just increase your Thorns damage, they don't come with defensives. And I talk about how like these Thorns passives need to be changed to where they come with Thorns damage plus maybe some block chance or Thorns damage with some armor or something. And like anything like that, I'm okay with hybrid stat stuff like that. Because it's never like as long as it's the small passives, it can't get out of control. It's when you have like, you know, those big passives that increase your total maximum health by 10%. Like those are like when you have like 5 or 6 of those on the tree. That's when I get worried about life scaling, but I'm not sure. It's tough.
Balancing is always tough. And it's something we can't really quite understand or like get the full picture unless we're able to test it, right? So we can throw out all these ideas that we want, but at the end of the day, if we're just, you know, throwing stuff at the wall, whether or not they work at the end of the day, it's hard to say until we actually test it.
We don't know what we want. GG just knows that we're complaining about something, and that's their job to figure out what the source of that complaint is.
I always say this, right? Every single time when somebody talks about balance, things like that, and like suggesting like, you should do this, it's so simple, do that, right? And I always say that people who play the game are really good at finding problems. But when it comes to solutions, we don't quite have the best answers because we can only see things from one perspective, whereas GGG, the developers, they can be players, but also they have the numbers and like all the testing abilities in the background. So where they can actually come up with solutions. So it's like we found the problem. And, you know, I'm sure there's some really good solutions that players have posted, but in general, players are not as good at finding solutions as opposed to finding problems. We're really good at that.
Well, talking about what players have found, I want to quickly just showcase stuff from the community. There was a post made on Reddit by Stalks You Everywhere. He wanted to show off potential ways in the future that we could make armor scaling work. He has an interesting setup he posted to the Path of Exile 2 builds Reddit using Skin of the Loyal, where your armor is increased by over capped fire resistance. He gets a super high over resistance cap. Able to get an insanely high armor of 44,000. This is all like theory craft Path of Building stuff with an 82% physical damage reduction. There are things in Path of Exile 2 that are missing that make what that would enable this build to being really good. Like there's a lot of ways that like we really need ways to convert armor into damage. Right now we don't have ways to do that. So like if you had 44,000 armor and you could convert that to damage, that would be pretty good, right? But right now we can't do that. But I love seeing posts like this. I love seeing these like theory craft little smorgasbord type things. Have you guys played at 90 all res cap before? I've done it once on a Smith.
No.
And you feel godly.
Is it that good?
It feels really good.
Yeah. Because I was already
if
thinking
I had this setup,
I
I bet you'd be pretty unkillable.
Yeah.
Not fully unkillable, but
and we already have that type of like archetype a little bit with lay siege and offensive stance. I think it's called the two nodes. We have two nodes where we can turn block chance into damage, and then we have also the glancing blows to easily get to max block. So there is a pathway into doing that type of stuff to turn tankiness into damage like that, and it's a very, very good way to lift up these types of builds with high life, high armor, and then we get some sort of type thing like we already have with glancing blows, lay siege, and offensive stance. So yeah, it just has to change. That no one is using armor when we have 3 ascendancies. It's a rough one. It's a rough one. It's just untapped potential. That's a word, right? Yeah, that's a thing English people say. Okay, yeah, okay.
I mean, this is kind of like tangential to this conversation, but I think Cal, you were talking about how like you really like how these posts about like basically theory crafting, right? Yeah. And I don't know, I feel like in my mind we have a lot of players, but I mean at the moment we don't, but in general POE 2 does have a lot of players, but I really do think we might be lacking a bit on the theory crafting side, because like I really don't have, like I was just looking at like the list of because I do like I do these little shorts that highlight certain uniques a lot pretty regularly, and one of the things I'm looking at is like I'm going through these uniques, I'm like I've never really seen a build using this unique or like this combination of uniques, which in my mind seems pretty obvious that they could be kind of cool to do together, but I haven't seen anything really like, and maybe somebody's done something, but it's not like a very popular post or a very popular build or something like that. I feel like, I don't know, do you guys think that we might have like a problem where we just don't have that many people theory crafting, especially compared to POE 1? We have a lot. I feel like POE 1 has a ton of theory crafters and people really dig deep, but we don't really have that in POE 2.
Yeah, there's early on Dreamcore in both patches does like unique showcases, and I've seen a few videos from him where he dives into a unique, and that inspired me to make a build. Just by him like theory crafting what you could potentially do with it. And I remember using, I think it was a energy shield overleach item. I forget what it was, but I saw him cover it, and that's the only person I've seen do it. I think it is a combination of like what you said, like there's just not enough people playing it right now. That's part of the reason why I was like excited to showcase this little image on stream, because like maybe like by us showcasing people's builds and by like us talking about this guy's image on stream that he cooked up, maybe that encourages more people to do theorycraft stuff. Because I agree, there are still uniques that I find today that I have not seen yet. That guy go, oh, that's cool. I want to do this and this with something. Like, there's just not I feel like a lot of it comes from just like the POE brain of like, a lot of people quit builds before trying them because they foresee the math of it. And they think, well, it's not going to get me past Breach +2, so there's no point in me experimenting with it right now. Maybe that's what it is, but I agree. Like, there's just a serious lack of theory crafting. I was excited when I saw this post, even though like it's not going to execute well in game. Like, these kind of things, like, they're cool. And we don't get much of it at all.
I think the theory crafting will come more over time. I think that's just natural to the game. There is a definite point that the sad reality is that a lot of the uniques that are in the game, even if you theory craft them to the max, they unfortunately fall short a lot of the time. I have that same feeling that you have, that I find a lot of uniques that I'm going like, oh damn, I never noticed this before. Damn, this is such a cool concept. I actually last league, I did so much theory crafting on fire stuff. I did so many theory crafting on some uniques that I haven't seen before. A lot of them fell short, unfortunately. I think it might just be that they put these uniques into the game to build the game on top of those. Opposed to the other way around, to just build the game and then put uniques in like that, who then work with the already existing game. Unfortunately, a lot of them fall short, and I think a lot of people are just then at a certain point they just go like, yeah, okay, what the hell? I tried Gloomgown now. I tried I don't know. 6 other uniques now, and I tried to find my own way, and it's just not working this way. When I look at a streamer or when I look at another build playing here, this just pales in comparison. And then that is just the thing where people kind of give up, unfortunately. But I think that will come with time. I think we will get more and more stuff over time. More and more people will find ways to kind of break the game in some points as well. That is what Jonathan said in an interview as well. They are just looking forward to people breaking the game over and over again, and then they can adjust. So yeah, I think it will come. It will come. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of the uniques unfortunately fall short a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think that's just because they're designed to be early game uniques, or is that because they're poorly scaled? Like, do you think a lot of these uniques themselves, like, is it that we need more uniques, or is it that a lot of the uniques need to be fixed that we currently have?
I think it's a mix of both.
It's a combination, but yeah.
Yeah. And they already addressed a little bit of that. I think, was it in the 0.2 patch or the 0.21? I think it was in 0.2, right? With the release of Dawn of the Hunt, they already addressed the problem of uniques being only really usable in the campaign, and then they completely fall flat in endgame. But that was probably not enough, because we're still kind of at the same stage. On the other hand, by the way, I just realized this the other day. I think the uniques they have nerfed down, like Ingenuity, for example, or like Hand of Wisdom in Action. I just recently realized that they kind of did a great job at adjusting these, because they are still used in a certain way. Ingenuity is still heavily used. Hand of Wisdom Action is still heavily used. Headhunter is now more used, but they are not as prevalent as in the last league again. So they obviously did a great job in adjusting those. So maybe do the same on the lesser used unique, so we can have more options. But that is such a balancing act. Like we said, I'm good at finding the problem right now. The solution, I don't know.
Yeah. It's actually funny because it's actually funny because I feel like Ingenuity is still the best in slot belt. Like for me, when I'm mapping, I use Headhunter. When I'm bossing, I use Ingenuity. I think that the reason, and I do think that it did get balanced well, but I think one of the problems with that is just there's a lot less options for belt slots, because not many belts actually add damage. And Ingenuity just ends up being the one that people use because, hey, this belt gives me damage, so I can use it against bosses. And then the rest I use for Headhunter for mapping. And then
I think Ingenuity is just cracked in general. Like the fact that it can scale all rings up, like there are just so many unique rings that it's always going to be good. As long as it's boosting rings, because rings are just good.
Mm-hmm. And then
it's just because the ring slot is so good and the bell slot is so bad. That just makes Ingenuity good. Even if it's 10%, it's still it's still going to be good.
Yeah, I think Hoa is in a nice sweet spot where, because like again, belts, you don't have an alternative. Like rare belts don't give you damage, right? So it's just basically stacking up ingenuity against other unique belts.
Unless you play Thorns.
Unless you play Thorns, but with Hoa, it's still the most commonly used unique glove. Like it's still the most popular unique glove. But the thing is, the reason why it's common is because it's easily accessible, gives you a lot. But if you do want to go to the tippy top, you go for those triple flat gloves with like crit damage, attack speed, things like that, right? So you have an option that you can spend more money to go beyond it. Whereas with belts, ingenuity is still just the best offensive belt.
Just to throw in a statistic here, Tangle Tongue, 41% of players use Tangle Tongue, 41% of players use Ingenuity, and then the next spot is Hand of Wisdom in Action with 19%, Sacred Flame 19%, Beacon of Aziz 15%, and then we just go into the less than 10s. Morio still with 11%. I think that is already way better than we had it in the last league. I think Sir Gog, if people want to watch the meta report that Sir Gog did on the last league, it was Ingenuity was 95 or something like that. So that is, and Hand of Wisdom Action was, I think, around 80% as well. So it's already much better than we had it last league in terms of diversification on that front. So yeah, 41% is still pretty high in my opinion, but yeah, much better already.
Yeah, like I said, it's about giving more options. Right now, Ingenuity is the only option, pretty much, for damage, especially like with physical damage, you can use Roslathas, but other than that, you're just...
I think if elemental builds were a little bit better, you would see the glove slot change. There's that glove. I use it in like 2 builds. It like literally doubles.
Oh, the exposure glove? Is that the one?
That makes you negative elemental damage.
Yeah, negative exposure, right?
Yeah. You can go to negative 50 damage, and that doubles your damage. So once people catch on to how good that is and stacking penetration is, I feel like that will be competitive with Hoa in the glove slot. But right now, it's just there's so many physical builds that just dominate with Hoa. I do agree that those were good nerfs. Leopold's, Leopold's. That's what's called.
And Death Articulate is also really good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool options. If you guys like Theorycraft stuff, there's the Path of Exile 2 builds subreddit. I frequent that a lot. They allow you to post these little images that we just showed on screen of like you just throwing these things together. If you're big into Theorycraft and you have like ideas and builds you want, post them on that subreddit. We check it, or at least I check it frequently. We need more Theorycraft stuff. Just to swing back quickly to the armor discussion. This all started from the armor discussion, and we went through our life discussion naturally through that. We knocked out 2 topics there, but really quickly, I want to talk to you guys about armor and the movement speed penalty, because that was a big point that I wanted to bring up. I hate the movement speed penalty on armor so much. Like, there's very few in this game that I feel like GGG has just completely missed the mark on. I hate the idea that you go slower with armor, period. Like, and the fact that there's no increase, like, even if you add increased movement speed nodes to that bottom left-hand side, which there are none, you can only get increased movement speed in the bottom right, I think. But I hate armor stacking and it making me slower. Like, that at this point is like one of the major reasons I don't play armor, ignoring how its ineffectiveness. For me, it's the move speed penalty. What are you guys' thoughts on armor having that additional downside of move speed penalty? Because I really hate it.
Well, I think for me, right, when I think about the armor penalty, it does exist in Path of Exile 1, but the thing is, in Path of Exile 1, there's just so many more movement speed options that the armor penalty doesn't really matter too much.
That's fair.
So I think that's one of the issues. But also in Path of Exile 1, there is quite a easy fix-ish to this problem, in that there is a node on the tree down here by the duelist section called Art of the Gladiator. Ignores all movement penalties from armor, period. So it's like a twofold thing where it's extremely easy for anybody who's going armor to just take this one node and just completely get rid of that. but also the fact that in Path of Exile 1, like movement speed doesn't matter all that much because you just have so much more movement options. So it ends up being like we just don't have the solutions to the movement speed problem from armor that makes the movement speed penalty from armor a big issue. Now, again, as all balance-ish things, you can approach this from two directions, right? You can add more options, again, give us kind of a similar situation with Art of the Gladiator, or give us more movement speed options, or you get rid of movement speed penalty. But I do agree that the armor movement speed penalty at the moment is a huge like issue, and it is a problem that other classes just don't have to face.
Have you played a high armor stack character with like just 35% move speed boots? I think you barely get over 1%. Like it's like you're at like 0 to 1%. Like you barely aren't negative. Like it is so painful, I guess. Like people talk about it being slow. Like go play a max armor build. That's, you know, if you're not playing shield charge, you are really slow. Because like a lot of things like Leap Slam, they scale off of your like attack speed and stuff, so you can't even like go fast unless you're an attack speed build. So it's rough.
Yeah,
and it has a base like attack speed too that you can't go beyond.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I think so. Yeah.
I think just overall, this is just again like personally speaking, one of the worst things that can happen to me in PoE 2, and that goes into another discussion when it comes to temporal chains and stuff. I hate moving slow. It is the worst feeling of all. It doesn't matter what build I'm playing, whatever. As soon as I'm moving slow, I feel like the game just is less fun for me. I get the vision. I get it that it's supposed to be meaningful combat, and it's supposed to be not this zipping around type stuff. I'm not asking for PoE 1. I'm not asking for whatever other games there are where you're just zipping around. But I not only don't get the whole movement speed penalty for stuff, I don't get the whole, like, everything has to have a penalty overall. There has to be downsides to certain stuff. Like, for example, we talked about Deepest Tower earlier. Deepest Tower has as a downside that your presence area is reduced, for example. That's a perfectly fine downside, in my opinion, because you get a huge upside on the other side. And otherwise, if we didn't have the downside, it would just be absolutely OP and broken. On the movement speed topic, I don't really get why we have to have these penalties, because every single time I'm not on my movement speed, or I move back to a character that doesn't have the same movement speed as the character before or something, it just feels bad. It just feels bad to me. I'd much rather have much less damage, but at least move faster than move completely slowly but annihilate and one shot every single enemies. I need to move. I need to move at a certain pace where I don't feel like I'm walking in mud. That is the best way for me to not have fun anymore after like half an hour, because I feel like I'm not moving forward. So I think Jonathan talked about this in a interview before, because he said just moving up the base movement speed is gonna be really hard to balance around, because everything is based on a certain movement speed, and that is probably pretty hard to balance around, and I get that. But yeah, I think the game should not feel like I'm walking, like I'm punching on the water or something. It should always have a certain speed to it, as long, and especially if I'm in endgame and I have the ability to take away some damage in order to get some movement speed. That is a perfect downside for me. If I do less damage but I can move faster, that is the downside. Then the downside is I do less damage, but at least I'm moving fast.
Yeah. I'm not one who's like, you see the PoE argument, you see the argument that move speed should be implicit on boots, that it's just way easier to get. I don't agree with that. I agree. I am on the option that that there should be these types of choices, and like you should just be sometimes able to get bad rolls. Like bad rolls, like items bricking is okay for the economy. But I really just dislike penalties to move speed that are just base. And someone in chat said it, the move speed penalties that are on like shields and stuff, you don't even see that in game. Like there's a lot of hidden modifiers in this game, and like a lot of people don't even realize that when you're putting on these things, you're going slower too. So it's just, I feel like it'll be a whole nother topic one day of like all the sides you get in this game. There should be some trade-offs at times, but this game has a very like almost like it feels like they feel like they have to put downsides with a lot of things, that they can't let the player creep up the power creep too much. And yeah, I don't know. Move speed is the one thing in the game that it has to be in a good place. I don't know what they can do to temporal chains that will not make it an auto. Like I will always ditch my temporal chains maps. I'm not going to do them. I don't want to risk going slower. Like maybe if they decrease the activation time by like another 3 to 5 seconds, and then so it's so easy to avoid. But yeah, temporal change is like the worst feeling thing in the game. Like why? Like it shouldn't. Like nothing should make me not want to play. Period.
Exactly. The game should be. It's a little bit of a meme, the whole like fun detected stuff. But if I actually, as someone who really enjoys the game, and I'm really, really positive about the game, but if I start to feel a certain way about like, oh, I'm actually like, this is, I don't want to do this right now. I think that's a bad sign. It should not be fun police. I get some stuff that needs to have downsides. But I think we had a very, very good comment right now, and that one said downside should be build defining, not build rottering, right? There should be a downside to an item to not make it like, for example, if Deepest Tower would not have the downside of reduced presence area of effect, that would probably be way too OP in a sense. Then you don't have to go into presence area of effect. But the way it is right now, a lot of the stuff that how the downsides are, it's just, the item is just never going to be used. The upside is whatever, because the downside is so annoying. Anything that says minus 10% movement speed, that could be the best hammer in the game. I don't care. I'm not taking that one. That hammer could say I snap my fingers and every pinnacle boss in the game is dead, but I have minus 15% movement speed. I'm not using that one. It is just, I think, simple like that. So yeah, they need to adjust a little bit on that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I understand thematically, right, why they're like, oh, armor should have less movement speed, right? But at the same time, in a game like Path of Exile, it's such a big penalty. Like in Path of Exile 1, again, the penalty doesn't really matter too much, right? You barely feel it. But because Path of Exile 2 is just a fundamentally different game, and the fact that they are not giving us all these movement speed options, it really makes me think, like, is there really a point in having this penalty? Because, like, yes, thematically it makes sense, but it just hurts the game more than it helps. Like, okay, like how many people are going to actually care that armor gives you, like, you know, all of them have the same movements, like none of them have a movement speed penalty?
What breaks if you're moving fast, the same speed with armor? Like if you remove the penalty and it's just base movement speed, like ES and EV, does the game break at all? Like
no,
I don't. It is a downside for theme, and that does not make sense to me in a video game. Like when we're here to play it for fun, like the theme is not like, if that's taken away from my act, it's weird. I think the best point you made is that POE 1 has so much movement options. I have played POE 1 for years. I did not know armor had that downside in POE 1. I've never noticed it. I don't play armor builds too often in POE 1, but I never knew that. I thought this was a POE 2 exclusive thing they decided to do, and it's because, you know, you never actually walk in POE 1. You're teleporting everywhere, so.
Yeah, it's like the only thing with movement speed is just like it's supposed to be a penalty for like maybe like something like if armor was really, really good, and like it really was like if you didn't add a movement speed penalty, everyone would be slotting in armor, then maybe it would make sense, but it just that's not the case.
The funny thing kind of is we can be extremely fast in PoE 2 right now. I'm playing a lightning arrow build right now on an invoker, and with rite of passage, with certain nodes in the passive tree, with the 55% movement speed boots, you can be extremely fast with shrine, an acceleration shrine, which can last up to 2 minutes with the shrine nodes. That is PoE 1 levels. Sometimes when you tune into my stream and I'm playing this build on maps and I have an acceleration shrine, I have the rite of passage going, that is PoE 1 speed. 100%. It is just like that. It's just again, it's the one side of the tree. It's the upper right side of the tree, and then any type of build that is playing a Titan and just moves around at not even 10% of that speed just looks unusable, in my opinion.
I've had builds with negative
we have the
move
technology.
speed.
We have the technology to go fast. We're just not applying it to like evenly, because you can be incredibly fast. It takes high investment. It's not going to be possible out of the gate into endgame, but it is there. It is there.
Yeah, that actually, funny enough, opens a whole other can of worms about like shrines and acceleration shrine. Like whenever I get an acceleration shrine, I feel so good, and that's why I could never spec off of shrines on my Atlas. Like I will always have shrines on my Atlas because of the fact that it increases the amount of shrines, which means I have an increased likelihood of getting acceleration shrines, and also has an increased duration. Like that in itself.
Yeah, the one node that gives you, like, when you take a shrine, it gives you a chance of giving you a different shrine buff. So you're just constantly juiced with acceleration. Like, yeah, you cannot play without it if you're like mapping efficiently.
Yeah, it just feels so good.
There is no better feeling. I said this. I say this every time on my stream, every single day. There is no better feeling than getting an acceleration shrine, a 2-minute acceleration shrine at the start of your map, and I think that tells you something. That means I'm only speaking for myself here, but that is the response I'm getting from a lot of people. Being fast is fun, and yes, meaningful combat, yes, but when I'm mapping, I want to be fast. I want to feel like I'm. Yes, I don't need meaningful combat when I'm slapping rares.
When we see these Jungron clips of them clearing a map in like 22 seconds, and it's just like a blur, and you can't, like, we don't want the game to get to that speed. That's not what we're talking about. But we're just asking not to be penalized for our speeds, you know.
And I think like the whole speed conversation compared to Path of Exile 1, right? I think like, you know, movement speed wise, I don't think it's necessarily that big of an issue to get close to Path of Exile 1 levels. I think what really gets super confusing and like super hectic is because Path of Exile again has Path of Exile 1 has all those movement options where you're literally teleporting around the screen, teleporting around the map. That again, Jonathan has mentioned in the past the reason why they don't want it to be that fast is because you just don't know what's going on in the game. Like you watch that and you kind of just get a headache, right? And I think a lot of that comes from just the movement options and types of movements rather than the movement speed itself, because like you said, Rabbit, you can get pretty fast in this game, and I don't really find like an issue with that. It's when it just gets so hectic to where you're literally teleporting across the screen that becomes a case where you're like, what is going on? This is too much for me to watch. Like sometimes watching Jun Roan builds, and like Localhall actually had a build like this where he was teleporting all over the place this league. I actually was like, wow, I can't watch this. I'm getting a headache. But I think like movement speed itself, I don't think is too big of an issue for players to move fast.
Agreed. Base movement speed, I don't think is a problem. It's because it's never going to, like, I've had situations. There's the one passive node that when you block, it gives you 1% movement speed. It's called, I forget what's called. But I've used that on Thorns builds, and I've like when you sit in the spot that has like the quill bursting guys that shoot the multiple projectiles at once, you can get yourself over 100% move speed, and even moving at that speed doesn't break the game. It's when you're using those teleport effects that you're talking about that warp you a billion miles. That's where the
parrying
problem is.
motion.
So, like, I don't. Yes, parrying motion. Yes. I love that passive, but it's not the base move speed that's the problem in POE 1. It's like all of the combination effects. Real quick, you guys, how are you guys on time? We still have one big topic left.
That's
so are
fine,
you guys good going over?
Yep.
All right. Then let us transition to our rarity discussion. I think this is where we're going to get the most discourse in the comments. I personally, we're talking about rarity as a stat on gear right now. I personally like rarity as an option. I come from playing MMOs where you have multiple sets of gear. Sometimes you have your raid set, your dungeon set, your PvP sets, and stuff like that. I don't hate the idea of, if I'm trying to optimally farm currency, of having to put on a rarity set. I am okay with the concept of me sacrificing player power for the idea of better loot. And I understand that a lot of PoE players, like, once you talk about that, it becomes a mandatory stat, which means that they can only play builds that can function with rarity effectively at the highest level. And that just, to them, that shrinks the scope of viable builds. I don't process it that way. I am okay having different sets for different builds. I am okay if I like for the pinnacle of pinnacle content, I have to take off rarity gear and wear min-max DPS gear or min-max survivable guild. Maybe it's just because I come from games where I am used to multiple sets of gear. I don't look at gear swapping or rarity ever as a mandatory stat, no matter how good rarity is. There's nothing mandatory about me making the choice of putting on, like, I don't know. I guess that's just how I process it. I personally like rarity. I like the idea of having magic find sets. What are your guys' thoughts? I know, Rabbit, you were the one that was really excited about this.
Yeah, that was kind of my exact opinion for
I'm sorry.
a long time. No, be ready. It isn't anymore.
Okay, change, cool.
Since I think I never said this before, but I really like Diablo 2, by the way. And that's why I always went into POE 1 or POE 2 for this conversation here, with liking Rarity a lot, because it is exactly that thing that you just said. In Diablo 2, it was always like that. I had a magic find character, and it was Sorg, a magic find, and that was just the best character you could do magic finding on, because Blizzard was just such a high base damage, and you could just basically swap on any gear that you wanted, and you just can farm like that. I always liked that. I think playing PoE 2 over and over again now, and having been played PoE 2 for almost 3,000 hours now, my opinion, it keeps shifting. It keeps shifting and keeps shifting right now, because I am not too sure if I like it in PoE 2 anymore, especially as a stat on items. I think there is a more accessible and better way to do rarity in the game that would benefit the vast majority of players. The problem with having multiple item sets and the problem with rarity as a stat, it cancels out a lot of the player base, in my opinion. I really try to see it from a perspective of someone who doesn't play this game 12 hours a day like I do. For me, rarity right now is super fine. I can stack rarity on any character pretty high, and I don't really care too much. I don't know if I like it as a stat anymore, because even though you say it could be something that is just an alternative character and you have a magic finding character, it is still going to be the character that most people would want, because if it means you get more currency drops and you get more good unique drops and you get more high tier rares or tiered rares, it's just always going to be that is your main character then. And I think it just inhabits a little bit too much of itemization for me to actually find it good again, because yeah, it's just really rough. It just takes a too large part of what itemization should be. And I think there's just really cool ways of doing it in a different way, like putting it onto maps, only putting it onto maps, just putting it onto the towers. And the towers are another discussion on this topic that I'm really passionate about, because I think there are very, very good opportunities to do it much better here, and actually getting more people in the boat, that no one feels like, fuck, I forgot rarity again on my build, or I cannot do this build, especially more casually focused players. I think it's too hard to also incorporate rarity into the build, because it feels mandatory. I don't think there is any ways around it. It feels mandatory. If I'm going with 0 rarity into maps, it feels like I'm missing something.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head there about like thinking about the casual experience of the player that doesn't play 12 hours a day. And I'm thinking about it even more on like an economy side of things, because as we get more and more people with rarity, right, the rift and the difference between that casual player and that person that plays 12 hour days grows even more because of the economy. Things get inflated. That person who has that rarity gear, who's been playing 12 hours a day, like, can farm that rarity gear up quickly, is going to be getting more and more advantage compared to that person who doesn't, have that time to farm that currency to get that rarity gear, to get their build to an acceptable level of clearing maps, but also being able to have that rarity. I think it's at the end of the day, the direction that this game is going towards, right, or the direction that GG wants to take this game towards, with the whole conversation about like we want to make it more accessible, we want to make it, you know, better for a more casual audience, and still having, you know, of course, things that people who are hardcore players can find fun. And I think at the end of the day, because of that, it does end up making that difference between that casual player and that hardcore player quite a big, you know, the gap is bigger. And personally, as a person, so to give context, I run pretty much no rarity ever, because I'm the type of person that's like, it's good enough, right? But also, like, I explain it this way, in that I switch builds so often that whenever I do put rarity on my gear, by the time I'm able to get it on, I'm not able to get my value back from that piece of gear before I swap to the next character. So that ends up being another reason why, for me, I'm not a big fan of rarity. But I do, you know, see that it can be fun. But again, I just, for me, thinking about the direction of the game, where they want to take it, and thinking about like the way I mean, there is some bias in the way that I play the game, but thinking about it from a more broader perspective, like where they seem to want to be taking the game, it doesn't feel like rarity on gear really fits their vision, I guess, for where the what they want to do with the game.
It's kind of funny that like I went into this thinking you guys would have different takes. I actually completely disagree with that. I think rarity is a gateway for casual. I think you guys, I don't think casual players think about inflation and things like that. Casual players don't play the game daily. They're playing like once or twice a week at max.
Well, they kind of have to think about it when they're buying an item, when they want to upgrade their gear.
And casuals aren't min-maxing their builds to that point. A casual, like for me, a casual, like rarity is a gateway to making your character better.
I mean, it's not about min-maxing. It's like a unique item. Like, a unique item gets more expensive. You guys
don't, like, you even talked about how you don't do rarity because you make multiple characters. Most casuals are still on their first character this league, and they're not finishing characters in leagues. Like, when you're a casual player, especially when you're like brand new to an ARPG, when you're like first get introduced, like here's the natural progression in Path of Exile. You start making a character, you hit a wall, and then you want to upgrade gear. You want to upgrade gear, how do you do that? A casual doesn't know crafting.
A casual is going to look at a guide and see, hey, I need this unique item. It's way too expensive now.
When you start looking up guides, you're no longer a casual. You've like stopped being a casual in my mind. You have now become like, you may still be a noob. Maybe we're like using different terms here. You can be a noob, but when you're like looking up guides, you're no longer a casual. A casual just kind of plays the game and farts their way through it. And casuals can trade. And what you realize when you start trading as a new player is currency is better gear. It doesn't make you better gear, but currency is what you trade to get upgrades. Even now, I never look at crafting stuff as like crafting stuff. It is always just money to buy myself my next piece of gear. And as a new player, when I think of rarity, that gets me more divines, right? Like I don't think of rarity as getting me more drops. I think of rarity right now as its big benefit is it gets me more divines per hour. So like when I think of a casual player who thinks, I don't know how to make money, but what I do know is divines is more gear and rarity gets me more divines. That is a casual stat to me. It is very surface level, and it is a very entry level way of getting more gear. Because like once you talk about like looking up like trade links and like having all these different filters and stuff, you're no longer a casual. But a casual knows that this weapon doing 800 DPS and it costing 5 divine, like that's casual friendly to me.
I mean, if from that perspective, right, does the casual player even think about rarity?
Yeah, of course.
No.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
because they look. One of the most asked questions in my stream. It's definitely one of the most popular questions I get every single day, and I'm assuming that people asking the questions are pretty new to the space or pretty new to Path of Exile 2. Is how much rarity do I need? That is one of the most popular questions every single day. How much rarity do I need? And as a casual, all you know is I need to get that number on my gear. Boom! I'm making more money. My gear's getting better. Period. Like as a casual, there is a 1-2 step process there.
And the other thing is like, how do they get that gear? Then they need currency, right? And if they're not getting that currency and it's getting constantly inflated, then how are they going to get it? Like it's there's just
the
so
inflation
many...
topic is a different argument. I agree that inflation technically makes it worse for the casual player, because without the inflation, they would technically be able to afford cheaper gear, right? Like that's where the inflation makes it harder for the casual. But from the casual's perspective, like at least from my way I think about it, like if you hit a wall with a build, you're either going to quit the game or you're going to think, okay, how do I make my build better? I see I need this gear, I can't afford this gear, and then like Rabbit said, one of the first things you hear is put rarity on gear. I think that's one of the first things you tell people, right? Is put rarity on gear. So like it's just one of the first stepping points I feel for a casual player where it's an obvious one. Rarity is obvious that you would want it on your gear. I do agree that like maybe the argument should be like, should it be buffing currency? Maybe buffing currency is the biggest problem. But then I feel like once you do that, like why even have rarity if it only boosts item drops?
Yeah,
I think the discussion is just very nuanced as well, because I like even though I'm counterpointing a little bit, I'm still for rarity. I'm still under the I just don't think of it that way I did before, that it needs to be on the character, right? So I think it would be a very, very natural thing that, for example, let's just say I am on my Atlas, I have a tower, and I decide that this next area on my tower, I really want just one tower, by the way. That is something I wanted to talk about in this discussion as well. I don't know why we have to keep looking for overlapping towers. Just give me one tower and I can decide what I want to do on the next 15 maps, please. Don't let me look for, I need to find 4 overlapping towers now. And no, that is a whole nother discussion. I've never done an overlapping
tower setup, by the way. I refuse to find
it. Just give me one tower. And let's just say for the next like 15 maps, I have this tower right here. And it doesn't have to be this one, because I have 4 directions I can go into. I want the next 15 maps to have 100% rarity, more rarity. That means the maps are going to be X amount of factor whatever are going to be harder, or it's going to be like it has more suffixes, suffix modifiers, so it's harder or whatever. That to me is the same thing and even more naturally in the game than actually having it on a character. So then it only means my character power scales not by I need to both balance character power and rarity on my character, but my character needs to be at a certain power level to handle 100% increased rarity on my Atlas. I think that is just, if it just stays the way it is right now, that is perfect. That is perfect for me. I have all the time to spend here, but I just want it to be more accessible to a large majority of other players that cannot invest that kind of time. And I think it would be more logical to then have it tied to the map difficulty, for example, and not to, I have to build a rarity character now. It just means more rarity just means the map is going to be harder. I think that makes much more sense in my brain.
Yeah,
I agree with that you said about the towers, but I just want a comment you just said there was you feel like people are missing out. It's funny because I've never felt like I'm missing out on anything. Maybe it's just because I haven't experienced it on the level you guys have, but I don't feel like I'm missing out. Like it's just it's a play style. I mean, I've played with rarity builds too, so I don't know. Miso, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you want to say something else on the gearing, Miso, before we jumped into the towers?
I mean, it's just I was just saying that I completely agree with Rabbit in that I don't think it needs to be on gear, because for me personally, again, I don't play with rarity, right? But I do juice my towers. I do juice my maps, and that's how I get my rarity. And I think that is a very much more elegant way of doing rarity as opposed to doing on gear, because again, it's about accessibility. It's I know we've been using casual, new player kind of like interchangeably, so it's a little bit muddy in the waters, but I do think that the goal of GGG is to cater towards both the new player and the casual experience. And I think just at the end of the day, there is a barrier to entry. Like you need to get, it's not just about finding gear with rarity, because you need to have good stats as well on top of that to actually be able to do the content well. So taking it off of gear will just remove that barrier of entry that people have to rarity that, again, you can displace elsewhere that can be a little bit more easily accessible and something that can be done by everybody as long as they have the knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have 2 videos talking about towers right now. I've got one talking about how I don't think towers should overlap. Like,
Yeah, it might not have to come from towers, right? It's just another way that's not gear.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do like the idea that rarity should be tied more to the difficulty of the map.
100%.
Because that does lead to a world where, like, and if you do go down that route, it makes it less viable to have rarity as a stat on gear, because you're going to want to be able to clear that content, right? So I do agree with it from that point.
It's how they do it in POE 1. I don't know why in POE 2 it's not the case. Like, if your maps were difficult, you should get more rewards. It's like pretty obvious.
Oh yeah, I think that should
mind.
just be baseline.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I it's just like, so like, what does GGG do then? Like, is it the fact that rarity? So, like, one, do you think towers going to, like, let's just say like towers are changed to where they don't overlap anymore? You can now juice the maps themselves via the waystones and the tablets and your atlas better. Does that solve most of your problems alone, or would you still want rarity just removed from gear? What is the solution that GGG? Is it like removing the currency as an aspect from the rarity? Does it just need to be deleted from gear straight up, and we lean what is the middle ground here? Just completely remove it, or what? Because people were saying week 1, POE 1 Andes. I remember seeing from Zizran saying, like, week 1, nuke rarity from the game. Like, he wanted it gone immediately, and I was confused. I was like, I don't feel that strongly about it. It's all right. But if this is the direction we're going, these solutions you guys have proposed, those solutions make rarity more punishing in my eyes on gear. Like, it's like at that point you just need to remove it from gear. So
yeah. Like I said already, I always held the opinion that I always really liked rarity, because I really like stacking rarity on my characters. And like I said as well, if it isn't changed, that is not a problem for me. But I'm just seeing in my community and in my stream that it is just such, like Miso said, it's such a barrier to entry, and I feel like some people are getting left behind, because it kind of perpetuates the whole notion of someone being able to stack rarity. That means they get more, they can stack more rarity, they get more, and people are just going to be left behind a little bit. I know it's sometimes it is very hard to both serve the hardcore players and the more casually focused players, but I feel like a lot of people are getting left behind a little bit in the way that it is right now. I would honestly, if you ask me right now, if I had to choose, I would just nuke rarity from gear. I would just do it, and I would probably introduce way more possibilities of actually juicing our maps then, because if we just remove rarity from gear now, I think we would be missing a lot of stuff when it comes to juicing the maps. And let's just say we have the 1 tower system or the 3 tower system or whatever, there would need to be a way to actually increase the rarity on the map, or whatever I want to have on the map. I just think I only recently changed this opinion, actually. I don't know.
I can say confidently you guys have swayed me at this point, that I believe that rarity is like these are very good, solid arguments. I have not been making. So like I cannot refute them.
The whole thing is, I don't want rarity gone. I still want rarity in my head. It just makes so much more sense to have rarity tied. It just makes so much more sense to have rarity tied to how hard the map is. And then my character can always be the same, and my character is the same, and Miso's character is the same. Let's say I invested like 1,000 hours into my character, Miso invested like 100. We have the same baseline, but Miso has the possibility of also benefiting from 100% rarity on the map if he's able to do the map. I think that just makes so much more sense. As opposed to the fact that I invested thousands of hours, so I have invested 1,000 of divines and I have the insane rarity gear. I don't know. It just makes sense in my head. I don't know.
Also,
this is just. Go ahead, Nisa.
It also promotes RMT. I'm just gonna say it. It also promotes RMT. If you're coming in as a blank slate character, I want to have an efficient character, right? And I want to make more currency. Buy the currency, go in there, buy the gear.
I just like it.
But also increase build diversity, by the way.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Like, maybe it doesn't, though, because like those people who complain about build diversity, they're only going to want to play the builds that are like, that can do the highest difficult content for the highest rarity drops, right? So like, as long as GGG is able to balance multiple builds up to that point, then there's more build diversity.
I think that's easier to balance around though, because you don't have to think about the bills, but you have to think about what the bills are doing. And yes, I think that's way easier to balance around than balance around the gear with the rarity. I think then just getting a baseline for all the builds that are playing the maps, I think that's easier to balance around then. Yeah. So yeah, and we'll see. I don't think it's gonna get removed. I don't think rarity. This is honestly just spitballing by me, and
at the very least, I don't know. I don't know if it should work with currency. Like at least on gear, maybe on towers. I don't know. I don't know what again. We're good at finding problems, bad finding solutions. But I mean, I also think like on the whole bounce thing. I remember like at the beginning of 0.1, I think Sir Gog did like a analysis of like the Ascendancies and the builds, and like the most popular builds in Ascendancies were all things that were like easily slot rarity into their gear without giving up too much.
Yeah, that's another reason why Lightning Spear was just this popular, because you need Tangle Tongue. You can be naked otherwise. You just need Tangle Tongue. You throw a spear and then you just stack 250 rarity and then you're good. And then it just, if I'm doing a build and if I have to add rarity onto the build and the build just sucks afterwards because I'm like, oh, I'm missing out on so much, but on my Titan here I can't add any rarity. I feel the FOMO then. If I'm running around with 0 rarity, I personally just feel FOMO, because I feel like, oh damn, other people are getting twice the divines as I do in the same playing time. I don't know. That just might be something that I have and I should work on. But just feels like that.
One counter argument I would like to make, I guess, and I don't play solo self-found, but from a solo self-found perspective, does having the option of rarity on gear lead to that solo self-found player performing better isolated from a open market where they're trying to get their own divines or exalts or whatever, their own crafting and stuff? Like, does removing rarity from gear impact that person?
Yeah.
I would play Trade League.
It definitely does, but again, it's about moving the rarity somewhere else rather than like keeping it on the gear. I think that, if you're in solo self-found, of course, more rarity is going to give you more currency, which is going to make you obviously find more stuff and make your run smoother. But again, I think it's just about moving that rarity off of gear and moving it somewhere else.
That's cool. Back to towers. For me, like when we just talk about towers in general, no longer like move on from the portion of it. Like towers suck. I refuse to engage with the multi-tower layout. Like that cannot stay. I will never want to farm layouts. Also for me, it's like I started enjoying mapping when I started only mapping. I think it's called the Grand Project. It's the precursor tablet that lets you go to any map in the radius of the tower. I genuinely believe that should be made baseline. There are just so many times where, like, I don't know, I like doing the certain maps. There are maps that I just don't want to do. And the Grand Project allows me to be picky with my maps that I do. And I understand that they're wanting the Atlas to be some progression map that you're navigating, and I think that is cool. But the fact that like I might have to go through 4 hidden grottos to get to the fortress that I want to do, or when I put my breach stones in the tower, none of them land on the fortress that I want. They landed elsewhere. There's a lot of problems with that I have that does not let me map the way I want to, and I just think towers need to be like towers in general, including the rarity aspect, need a complete rework. Towers are the single worst part of mapping.
Yeah, I agree, and it's another point again where it just happens that there is a very, very big divide between people who can spend hundreds of hours in the span of a week or whatever, and the people who can not do that and just come back from work and have 2 hours to play. With the whole tower setup, I'm not doing it as well. I really like efficiency. I always go for the most efficiency. I like having gravity, whatever. I don't do tower setups. I couldn't care less. The most tower overlaps that I did all league or something was maybe a 3 tower setup that I found by chance. I want to play the game. I don't want to, like, if I imagine I'm someone, I have 3 hours of my night to play, I cannot imagine going in there and being like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to find the 4 towers now. I need to do this and need to do this. And 3 of these 3 hours, I'm actually doing a tower setup for an hour. That is just so anti-fun for me, and it's just so anti-casual player. It's, or however you want to call that. I think always telling people they're casuals or something, even though just because they don't have the time to invest, it depends on the vernacular, of course, but I think that's just anti-fun, especially for people who do not have the same time as like streamers or people who play this game for a job. It's just anti-fun. If I don't even want to do it, even though I have all the time in the world to do it,
yeah, if you're not doing it, then
it doesn't make sense as well. It's the same discussion as some other stuff we talked about, where something else just makes so much more sense, in my opinion, and I think it's pretty easy. Why do I not have the strength of these 3 towers on just 1 tower? I just get to an area, I have 1 tower, I decide I want to have on these next 50 maps, I want to have this, and this, and I choose the area. Why does it need to be this overlap? It could just be 1 tower. And also with the overlapping system, it locks you into 1 area. I'm just looking for these tower setups, and I'm just looking for areas that have these tower setups. And that, just like you just said, it is supposed to be a progression, but it's not that way. It's not a progression, but it's just looking for the optimal tower setup. And if it's just 1 tower where I come, or something entirely different, if they completely nuke the system, it's just 1 tower, I can decide. I have 4 ways to go. I can go this way, where I have some breaches set up for this tower with high rarity or whatever, or I can go this way where I have ritual and expedition set up or whatever. It just makes so much more sense, in my opinion, and it's just it's a time waste. Finding tower setups and setting up tower, it's just a time waste. It doesn't make any sense in terms of fun. It's just wasting times.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. I do 2 tower setups usually. I usually like, the way I like doing mapping is I like finding corrupted areas, cleansing them, and then doing a 2 tower setup there, 2 tower plus ideally. But I do 1 tower every now and then, but usually doing 2 towers. And that is luckily not super hard to find. But if you're trying to uber min-max 3, 4 towers, whatever, right? And it's just like, you spend most of your time looking for it, and it's just really annoying. I completely agree. Just, I don't know, they need to do something with towers. I also think like they've tried to make towers more fun to do, which at the end of the day, I still don't like running tower maps.
they're not.
I think Bluffs is the only tower map that I like running.
Yeah, Bluffs is good because it's just a straight line. That's fun.
Yeah, so it's like on top.
I mean, it's another map.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another map, right?
It is, but like, your goal is different, right? Your goal is just to get.
You can skip all the rares. Yeah, that's all I do. I will literally walk to the end and click it to get out of it.
Yeah, I mean, so what I will do, I do clear the rares on my tower maps, but then I make it like, okay, I need to find the checkpoint for the thing and then go there first and then clear it's a little bit of a hassle for me. I prefer just if they were, if they could make the tower layouts a little bit better, maybe a little bit more like Bluffs. That way it doesn't feel as much of a chore, because at the end of the day, I don't know, I still feel like I don't get as much from my tower maps as my normal maps. And maybe it's just about making the layouts better too. Again, like I think just like make it more enjoyable to do. At the end of the day, it might just be because the tower maps are just worse than the other map designs. But I just don't feel like the tower maps are fun to do.
Yeah, the maps themselves suck. I think like my original pitch in 0.1 for the fix of them was they should just be a boss. Like, it's literally just a boss battle. It's a hard boss battle or whatever, and like you're in and out. Like, and you just get the bonus from it. If you want it to be something you have to do, make it something that's like, because if you're not having to kill the rares, a lot of people are just going to run to the end and then just get the bonus from the map and stuff. It's not good in its execution. I don't want to do them a lot of the times, even now that you can get like breach on them and stuff. It's not worth it. Like, and just the way they're utilized in general, like, the fact that they're maps that you actively do, like, I don't know. I just hate everything about towers. Maybe it's just because I just recently played POE 1 again, but when I'm traversing the Atlas, I want to be able to do the maps I want to do. And if you're in a 3-tower setup that doesn't have the maps you want to do, it doesn't matter. You're going to be doing those maps no matter what. So it's just there needs to be a lot of changes to the mapping process. I think towers are easily the biggest pain point, though. I don't know. Once at the start of this league, it was when I learned about the multi-tower setups. Maybe it was last league. I don't remember. But I remember the viewer in my chat, I was streaming at the time. He was like, "Yo, yeah, you're not juicing your towers." I'm like, "Well, what's juicing towers?" He's like, "Oh, well, go to this setup over here. You actually have one on you. There's 3 towers there." And like, as I was pathing through it, like, not even before I got to the first tower, I was like, "I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this." And now you want me to like hunt for 4-tower layouts or 2-tower, or at minimum 2-tower layouts, and
yeah. I just sent you a picture in Discord, Miso, if you want to put it on screen. It's a perfect example what I'm looking at on my Atlas right now.
Did you put it in the Twitch chat?
I found a 3-tower. I found a no. I just screen capped.
Oh, is it a screen cap?
I can put it here. Does that work? Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
I found a 3-tower setup very recently. I found a 3-tower setup just naturally, and I was like, yes, super excited. And it's this area in like the middle of it. It's in the middle. The tower setup is in the middle of that area. Every single of these maps that I haven't done here that you can see, every single one of these maps is either Sun Temple or Val Foundry. Two of the absolute worst maps of all time. I'm not lying. Every single map you see here is Val Foundry or Sun Temple. And yeah. That my tower setup. If it was just one tower, I just do the tower. I do like 2 or 3 maps, and I go to the next tower. In this case, I completely wasted the complete setup because I'm not doing these maps. I'm just.
They should bring map choice back.
Maybe not map choice. Maybe not complete. Like I can just do any map, but maybe at least you can like, pick favorite maps. Yeah.
Like, what if it's biome based? Like, when you're in the desert biome, you can choose that it'll be like the top 2 desert maps. Like, maybe that's how they'd have to do it.
And then you'd always have to like search for biomes again, and that would be kind of annoying too. It's kind of similar to towers.
Just make it easier for me to be able to skip some maps. Just make it easier. If I like, it might just be that there's someone who yeah, exactly. And it might just be that someone really loves doing Val Foundry, and if they now just say, just because I'm saying I don't like Val Foundry, they shouldn't just take down the amount of time you get Val Foundry, because there might be someone. But give me the ability to maybe easily skip it. I'm fine with having to do one Val Foundry as long as I can do something else. On this picture that you see right here, I can only do that one. I cannot skip it or anything. Just give people the option. Give people the option to maybe not have to play 5 hidden grottos at the after another.
All my solutions with that are like weird, because like if you do a reroll on the location, that doesn't really solve much. Like, you're just going to be spamming that currency on that spot. And if you do skips, like, my problem with the skips is like, when you juice a tower, whatever you put into it, breach, expedition, whatever, it goes to a random location. They at least would have to change that to where whenever you juice a tower, it's like your next 10 maps you do within this tower range gets that breach buff. Like, because as long as there's like this much RNG to it, like, if the buffs from the tower miss the one you're wanting to do, you're not going to do it. So
it's another thing about the 1-tower setup then. Like, 1 tower, I put the stuff in. I hover over the tower when I put the stuff in 1 tower, not 3. I put it in. The maps that get what I want them to get, because I put them into the tower, light up. I can see it. Boom. Why 3 towers? It just needs to be 1.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about the idea of bringing it back to Path of Exile 1 and doing maps instead of waystones, but still traversing throughout the Atlas?
I think
so. Everything is still the same, except the maps are not determined by the location they are, but it's just determined by your, like, the map thing, the waystone itself.
Yeah.
I think if GGG wants that, like, Atlas traversing, like, choice there, that's where you would do the biomes, where you can only insert the type of map for the biome that fits in. But either way, like, that's way better, because no matter what area I'm going through, like, as long as every biome has 2 to 3 maps that everyone likes, at some like then that would be okay. But I just like I feel like GGG would like be like, but you're in the desert area putting down a map that like doesn't look like this background. That's where I feel like they would be throwing their hands up over it.
Yeah. I think it's just
you also have that one Atlas passive that increases your drop rates and biomes, or did it get rid?
Mm-hmm.
Is that still in?
Yeah, it is. It's Jonathan. But I think like because I just keep racking my brains around like at like this idea of like I don't know choice, right? It always feels bad when they take away the player's ability to make choices, and that's what PoE 1 had. The ability to choose what map you did, and you don't have that in PoE 2. And I understand they like the Atlas traversal thing, which is why like maybe it's about swapping it back to where we still have the Atlas traversal, but you're just able to choose the map you're running in each spot.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because it's like literally as opposite as it can be in PoE 1. PoE 1, you not only can do whatever map you want, but they have a system where you can take low tier maps and make them high tier maps. So you can literally do any map you want at any difficulty as much as you want in that game. This game is like quite literally as opposite. So yeah, there has to be some changes here.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
That was good talk, guys. We went a little bit over time. We still have the build of the week showcases, though, but this was a great episode. It was cool to see how we can stretch these topics. It just makes me excited to do future. Like, we have so many things we wanted to talk about, and
there's still so many things we
could have talked a lot more on these things.
Yeah.
I could do a D2 podcast right after if anyone wants
to. This is mid. At some point, this is going to become a D2 podcast. Like that's your master
plan. This is my plan. don't say it. Don't say it out loud. Otherwise, it won't happen. This is my plan all along.
All right, let's get into
We're
the
still
build
doing
Yeah, we're going to do the build of the week. Are you good to dive into mine, Miso?
Yeah, let me pull it up here real quick.
Okay, so end of every episode, guys, we're trying to do build of the weeks. Sometimes it's going to be all three of us showcasing individual builds. Sometimes, we'll pick one. Right now, because it's so late into the league, some of our builds are recent releases, some of them from months ago. When we get into 0.3, expect a lot more of us showcasing community members in the moment. But right now, just because no one's playing the yeah. So I'm going to talk about my build. This is from a creator who I recently discovered named Ignatius. I've seen a couple builds from him lately. This is a Flicker Strike build. This is specifically a bossing build. It does do good on mapping, but it is a really cool breach build using uniques that I've always been wanting to make. It is a 48 million DPS tier 4 Zet one-shot Flicker Strike build. It does, okay, like I said, okay in mapping. If you never played a Flicker Strike build, this one uses a really cool unique called the Coming Calamity. It's the one that lets you, it gives you three of the, it gives you Herald of Ash, Herald of Lightning, and Herald of Thunder, I think, or no, Herald of Ice. And that's how he's doing all of his AoE clear with Cast on Crit Voltaic Mark. The combination of those two is how he's just getting the big burst of clearing. That's usually Flicker Strike's AoE is not that great. Most of the clear is coming from the Heralds. And then for bossing, he swaps off the Coming Calamity, goes to a more normal setup. Also, what makes the Coming Calamity good is it makes enemies elemental resistance, ends up being a good damage application on top of that. But then for bossing, he swaps to a single target setup, which is pretty standard for Flicker Strike builds. It's really cool. The really main reason it's not like Flicker Strike builds are anything new. The main reason I wanted to showcase this build is the Coming Calamity. I love uniques like this. They're just super cool to me. And then two, he's a newer creator who his build format is actually really awesome. If you take a look at his Mobalytics is one of the best formats I've seen. It's very clean. I actually took some of from one of his previous builds. I took some of his formatting and started applying it to my Mobalytics. And then of course his video guide is very well articulated, and it is straight to the point, no nonsense. He really explains it well. So as far as the new creator who I've seen a couple builds come out from lately, there's another Flicker Strike build. I've never played Flicker Strike. Maybe I'll one day give Flicker Strike a go, but this one looked really cool, and there were just a lot of really cool interactions. I don't know. When I see uniques like Coming Calamity, those are the ones that get me excited. I want to try and work in the build. And anytime you try and work them in, you realize that mathematically, there's usually better things. or like other optimizations work. But he actually made it work really well with this build, specifically for the mapping aspect of it, to be able to keep the core of his Flicker Strike build. All he's got to swap out is his chest piece and his neck, and he's just, easily building the power charges. The heralds take care of the AoE clear, and then 48 million DPS single target. I mean, that's pretty good. And this is a new build that he released 2 weeks ago, I think, and he said it was like 20 divine budget. For this late in the league, that is cheap. That is so cheap. So if you're looking for a new late game, and one other thing is, it's very specialized, that Breach. Tier 4, in my opinion, Rabbit can echo this because I see him doing all the time. Breach Boss is one of the best farms right now. It's just very easy to get into. You just do a Breach Stone, you clear Tier 4 Zets. Breach Rings can be flipped very easily. It's a brain off farm. So it's just a really good build for right now. Shout out to Ignatius for it. It's really cool.
Awesome.
I think I commented on one of his. I don't know. I'm not sure if it was this video, but I think I commented on one of his videos that I've never seen.
It was his AFK Simulacrum build. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I've never seen a Mobalytics guide that I thought of as this good. That was very.
It was the same one. I saw your comment on it, and I went and clicked on his Mobalytics, and I was like, "Oh, holy shit!" I literally in my next build, I copied some of his formatting, and I think in my actually in my Mobalytics, in one of the footnotes, I did shout out to Ignatius for the formatting thing.
Because it's incredible.
Very clean.
It's absolutely incredible.
He has links to the trade site too for the exact modifiers and stuff that you wanted. Like it's very clean setup. So again, shout out to Ignatius. He's an up and coming creator. Cool builds in clean format, man.
Yeah,
awesome,
perfect.
All right, you want to go next, Rabbit?
I go next. Yes.
Yeah.
Miso, you can use the second link I sent you for gameplay because in the original video there's not a lot of gameplay, unfortunately. Okay. I sent you a Twitch VOD for a gameplay you can play in the background. I think it's just gonna be Simulacrum. I have an ad on your channel. No, you're back. Yeah, my build this time, I think it's kind of insane how this didn't, in my opinion, how this build didn't become a absolute meta build this league, because it is absolutely insane. It is this time. It's the Chillnado Ritualist in this case, built by 787 Prada, who's a big homie. Who's an amazing guy. Streams here on Twitch as well. Does YouTube content as well. He doesn't have a Mobalytics, unfortunately. In this case, he tried to get one up. He said he's gonna get a Mobalytics up in the next few hours as soon as he goes home. This build is insane. But it uses Tangle Tongue. Yes, it is a spear build. It uses Tangle Tongue, but it is not a lightning spear build. It uses tornadoes. It uses the combat frenzy interaction. He's just freezing everything, gaining frenzy charges with freezing, and then he's also using Bushwick boots to actually apply pin to enemies when he's doing physical damage, so he gets even more frenzy charges from that. And then he's using Essentia Sanguis for the energy shield leech instead of life leech to always then be full energy shield, basically. On top of that, he has 78% evasion rating. So we talked already before that probably the best defensive layer in the game right now is having a good amount of energy shield, which is always going to be full here with the Essentia Sanguis. And then having high evasion just makes this build incredibly tanky. You can see him doing T4 Simulacrum here on this build. It is incredible. It uses the Whirling Slash thing that most people have picked up at a certain point here. And it just, it's just Twister City. I'm still surprised that not more people were playing this build, because I think it's probably one of the strongest builds in the game right now. And yes, I know that is due to Tangle Tongue being absolutely broken in this stage, but it's not a lightning spear build, so I think it counts. So it's amazing. I think it is also a build that Prada came up completely on his own. He's still improving on that one. That video, what you're seeing right now, is the absolute last version that he did. He has 3 different videos on his YouTube as well, with 3 different versions of it. And it's an incredible build. I think it's super, super fun. And it's honestly something, I don't know why I didn't play it, honestly.
It looks sick.
Yeah. And he told me as well, it doesn't rely on Tangle Tongue, by the way. This is probably going to be something that this doesn't rely on Tangle Tongue. Tangle Tongue obviously is going to be always the strongest option here, especially when you're not talking about like a mirror tier rare spear build. But this doesn't rely on Tangle Tongue strictly. So this is probably still going to be playable even when Tangle Tongue is annihilated. Most likely, we'll see.
I mean, I don't think any build really relies. I mean, they definitely rely on it, but like, I don't think it's mandatory for any build. It's just it's so easy that there's no reason not to use it. Like the next best option is just like mirror tiered weapons, like you said.
I mean, just I think looking at the footage, I don't think I need to tell you anything more about the build. It's just absolute insanity. That was wave 10, right? I hate that wave, and it's just I don't think he even looks at his screen, and it's an awesome
death
build.
Strip, you don't like the death strip wave?
No, I absolutely hate it.
I feel like most of my simulacrum deaths are on that way.
Yeah. Do you know how this compares to Snooze tornado build? I know he put a significant amount of time into that too.
Yeah, the first version of this build was on Prada's YouTube channel, I think a week into the leak. So
this is an older build.
Yeah, I think
Snoo also league started Tornado and never swapped either.
But Tornado, wasn't it more like Whirling Slash on his end?
No,
wasn't it like completely?
No, it was also Whirling Slash Tornado.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't check that one, unfortunately.
Got it.
Someone just offered me 200 divines for an 800 divine item in the game, by the way. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to get mad right now.
Got it. Well, this is a really cool.
Amazing build.
Yeah, amazing. And Prada, cool dude. Definitely check him out.
Yeah, shout out to Prada.
Yep, shout out to Prada. And then I guess my build's last, right?
Yes, sir.
So for me, I chose the Dinomancer by Ostrix. This was a build that was found like he had relatively earlier on into the league. I really love the Righteous Fire type of gameplay, and this is basically that, but minions. I tried doing this last league with skeletons, skeleton brutes, but obviously brutes have way less HP than some of these actual enemies in the game. So this was a really, really cool build that I personally wanted to try to make work, but it's a lot of work to get it to work. Just long story short. First, if you're able to do it, it's such a cool build. It's so cool. It takes advantage of the Triceratops, which is the highest HP, one of the highest HP minions in the game. And he uses the Tame Beast gem instead of Spectres, because with Tame Beast, you can actually get monster affixes, as opposed to Spectres, you cannot get the affixes. So he combines that with the increased AoE that you can get on mobs on these rares with the Triceratops monster from Trial of Chaos to basically make a minion Righteous Fire. I mean, the thing is, single target wise, he doesn't really do too much, but when he's like in terms of like swaps, but when he's mapping, you'll see that he basically takes his monster and swaps weapons to make it disappear, and then swaps it back to make it appear again. So it is the reason why I never ended up building this build, is because there is a little bit of clunk to it, but I just really love the
so cool.
Yeah, the idea. And something I actually did want to do but was never able to do because I couldn't get the weapon was I wanted to make this build except using the Dreamer Scepter, because while it does do decent AoE, if we combine it with Dreamer Scepter, and I think we use Killjoy to make it so that the monsters that your minions kill count as your kills, or so. It's not Killjoy, it's another one.
Killjoy is death effects happen twice.
Yeah, twice. It's another one that makes it so like all the kills count as your kills. I think it's
Gravebind. That's Gravebind, yeah.
Yeah. So then when your minion kills the monster, then they'll get the chaos pops, and then that'll help with like the clear. So I wanted to make a build focusing around this, but unfortunately couldn't do it. But I think that Ostrix's version is super awesome and really, really cool. Something I really wanted to make work last league, couldn't do it. So I'm glad that he was able to make it work this league. And hopefully maybe next league we'll get more support for this playstyle and be able to make it better.
It's a topic on one of our...
I mean, if Talkative Try ever wants to pick up PoE2 again, there's the build there.
Well, I mean, PoE2 is his
Triceratops.
game. Yeah, Triceratops.
Yeah, I know. Triceratops build. Let's go. Try if you're watching. Triceratops build. There we go.
I tried this build at one point for like an hour. And I tried the build. I was going to try and do the build. I think next episode it's one of the topics, maybe, or maybe the one after that. But collecting companions is just so hard in this game. The moment I tried, I was like, oh, not for me. I ain't wasting this time just to do this.
I can only imagine how many trials he ran to get this.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, did he get lucky early on, or was he there for days grinding for it? Yeah, because companions are a whole other topic. We are going to talk about that in some episode. But I love this episode, guys. It's so much fun.
It was fun.
We could talk about this game so much, which is why we started the podcast. But thanks you guys for watching. Any feedback, leave it in the comments. We are having a blast with this. I know this was supposed to be every 2 weeks. We got a little bit excited. There might be an I told you so at some point down the line that we should have kept it to 2 weeks. But right now we're having fun with the 1 week. We have just so much we talk about. We want to just, we're having fun. But if you guys enjoyed the podcast, please just, give us a thumbs up or a like on Spotify. I remembered at the end, the Spotify plug. We are on Spotify, and we would really like you guys to go and like it, favorite it, give it a thumbs up, whatever it is.
5-star rating.
5-star rating. Yes, 5-star rating there. But I'm Cal Torek. I make Thorns builds. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Cal. I'll probably stream some for League launch, but I mainly make you videos.
Miso Xuru, call me Miso. I stream twitch.tv/Miso Xuru every single day, starting around like 10 to 11 p.m. Pacific. Also make YouTube videos, make builds, and just general videos, makes lots of shorts. So come check me out there.
Hello. I stream on Twitch. Dead Rabbit. Hello. Every day. Come join.
And shout out to Mobalytics again, that we're partnered with them on this podcast. I mean, the level up and we would have never made graphics this good. And then this episode, we got the new graphic for showing off like the video footage and stuff. I feel like it just really helped with the production quality. So big shout out to Mobalytics. We're all three partnered with them. We make builds on their website and stuff. So if you follow our builds, you're probably familiar. Yep, shout out to them. Shout out to all you guys in the community. Please, in your comments, like if you have theorycraft ideas, if you have builds that you want to feature from your friends or like creators you're fans of, like just let us know what you guys want to see from this podcast, what you want us to showcase, because again, it is about us talking about the game, but it's also a community show. But that's it for episode 2 of the Path to Exile podcast. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
I'm stealing the salute.